Okay. That was very anticlimactic. All right. Mr. Bernard, thank you so much for your patience in us getting ready tonight. I want to thank you for your application for Superintendent of North Reading Public Schools. Our committee, which is about 24 people, is really a coalition of all different stakeholders in the community. So we are very pleased to talk with you tonight, have a discussion about your candidacy. The format tonight is you'll start with a brief opening statement, about 5 to 8 minutes. You can take as much time or as little time as you'd like. And members of our committee have prepared some questions, and they will be asking those questions. After which you can you deliver a closing statement if you'd like, or ask us questions, and that's about it. We will also introduce ourselves before we start, so in case there is somebody here you don't know, I know you know a lot of people here, I do. But we will go around and do the round. Do you have any questions about the format?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll start over here with introductions.
Dan.
Laura Canzuto.
Lillian Deesman.
Rich Genotasio.
Mark Organi.
Wayne Hardacre.
Karen Araketti.
Mel Webster.
Christine Molly.
Mike Conley.
Glenn McKay.
Trisha Curtin.
David Johnson.
Good to see you all.
All yours.
If there were a test, I could pass.
Really? Let's do that. No, okay.
It's good to see you all. Thank you very much. I'm very honored and excited to be here this evening to speak with all of you about my candidacy for Superintendent of Schools. I've had a wonderful career. I feel blessed to have found education. Public education has been my calling, I'd like to believe. It's something that I've enjoyed each and every day. I began as an English teacher at Saugus High School. I served in that role for 6 years, moved on to an assistant principal's position at that same school, served in that position for 8 years. I do just want to offer a quick commentary. There's a gentleman in the audience that probably no one knows. Mr. Ken Fabrizio is truly one of my life mentors. I've known Ken for about 35 years. He was an assistant principal at the Saugus Junior High School when I was a student, became the principal at Saugus High School, first hired me as a teacher and promoted me to an assistant principal, and I'm honored that he's here this evening. He's a wonderful man. And he is one of a number of people that I've been blessed to know in my career. I've worked for 5 superintendents. All of them have had a very different skill set, but the one thing that they all possessed and that I hope I took away from them was that every decision they made was in the best interest of children. And I hope that I have lived up to that over the last 25 years, particularly the last 19 as a school administrator, because I think if we lose sight of the fact that everything we do on a daily basis, if it's not in the best interest of children, then we've lost our way. And I do hope that, that those who work with me, those who know me best, know that I uphold that. I think probably the thing that has prepared me the most for this position is the practical experience that I've had as a classroom teacher and as a school administrator. This is not easy work. If it were easy, then it probably would not be the kind of thing that most people would want to get into, other than the rewards of working with children. And I have had that blessing for a number of years. Matthew, is a student here that I've gotten to know these last 4 years, and he is one of literally thousands of young people that I've had the opportunity to be a part of their lives, and it's something to be very, very proud of. Beyond the work I've had as a public educator, I think that maybe something a little bit unique, and it is in my resume, but I just want to call attention to it all for you, is I did serve as an elected member of the Board of Selectmen in Saugus at the time when I was living there from 1993 to 1999. That was a wonderful experience for me. I was fairly young at the time, learned an awful lot about working with people, about getting a job done collaboratively. Worked on developing a significant budget to run a municipality, forged a capital improvements plan, which I think was very beneficial to me when we began the project that we're all so excited about with the new middle high school when we started in 2005. That was an experience that really taught me an awful lot and something that I would not trade. I moved on from that political life, though, and devoted myself again to education, something that I'm very proud of. I think it's important for all of you to know what's important to me, the kind of core values that I hold, and the things that are really, in some large respect, non-negotiable for me, and I think the things that drive my work. And again, there's a number of you that are here that know me well, and some of you work with me and have worked with me for quite some time. It's hard to believe that it was about 11.5 years ago that Lil Deesman and Steve Jervy were interviewing me for the high school principal's job, but time does pass. But my hope is that that what you learned at that time in 2003 has been something that has been part of my makeup for the last 11 years. I believe very much in honesty, particularly when there are difficult conversations to be had. It's especially important to be honest, and as a principal, I've had a number of difficult conversations, and I would like to think that because I'm honest with people, and I hope that they are honest with me, that no matter the difficulty of the conversation, that people have always left my office with their dignity intact. That's something that's very important to me. I believe in respect. I believe in giving respect, number one, and I think it is not something that is just afforded to me because I hold the position of principal, but rather it is something that I've earned because of how I operate daily. I believe in trust. Without it, nothing can get done. I'm very proud of the work we've done at North Reading High School for the last 11 years. Could not be more proud of the staff, could not be more proud of the students. We've built a climate at that school that has put education first, has put students first, and has set very high expectations for them. And I believe we've worked very hard to support them in meeting those expectations. I'd like to think I'm a very loyal person. I ask for loyalty back. It's sometimes found to be a short commodity. That has not been my experience, thankfully. This community has been very good to me. The community of Saugus was very good to me. I worked there for 16 years. Very, very good to me. But I found something in North Reading that I never would have imagined would have been as personally and professionally fulfilling. I don't think it's any secret to most of you, maybe all of you, that there was a time a few years ago when I did seek a superintendency in 2 other communities and had been named a finalist in both of them. One of them I pulled out of, the second one I did not. But I really do believe, and I think it's probably, I had this conversation with Kathy Willis today, that the older I've gotten, I do think things happen for a reason. And when the decision was made that I would not be the superintendent of schools in Rockport, I was very comfortable with that, and I remain comfortable today. I think something happened there for a reason. I did not expect this opportunity to come as soon as it has, but I'm very excited about it. I would hope that my body of work over these last 11 years will stand on its own. But I'm excited and very intrigued to learn more about what your hopes are for the next separate superintendent of schools, and to share with you, maybe in some more detail through my answers to your questions, my qualifications for the position. So thank you.
Thank you. Our first question is coming from Mark Organi.
Hi, John.
Hi, Mark.
Great to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Really is a privilege to interview one of our own. So,
thank you.
Here's our first question. Given your experience in North Reading, what do you see as the biggest challenge the district faces? And how do you propose to address it if you become superintendent?
I think the greatest challenge we're faced with right now, probably in public education at large, but certainly in North Reading, is obtaining the resources that we need to do our best work. I think we're all finding, it's been very public in the newspaper about the unfunded mandates that have been set forth by the Commonwealth. And I think it's been a challenge to find the balance to do the work that we know needs to be done, and finding the resources and the funds to do that work. I do think North Reading is somewhat unique in that people really do go above and beyond what's asked of them. And I think that certainly is special, but at the same time, I do worry that we have to be careful that there's a breaking point, and that sometimes we have to be cautious that we don't ask people to do things that are unreasonable or that our expectations are too high. I think finding the balance between what we need to do, what's important work, what we are mandated to do, and securing the funding is probably the greatest challenge that we face. I think the second part of your question is how would I go about maybe meeting that challenge? You know, I don't know that there's an easy answer to that. I think that the chief responsibility of the superintendent of schools, and in some ways it's similar to being the principal of the high school, is that you are the chief advocate for that school, and as the superintendent, the chief advocate now for the district. And I think that the way in which the superintendent presents himself or herself to the community can be a very significant contributing factor to the way in which the community responds to the needs of the school district. And I think that, I'll use the new school building project as an example. I think that a significant contributing factor to the success of that project being adopted by the community was because our school district has done well, and that people see the school district as a great source of pride and see the value of the quality education. So I think because we have done a good job as educators in building a school district of which we can all be proud and which serves students well, that is received well by the community, and I think they have been very supportive. But there is a point where, you know, you have to be financially responsible, you know, wanting to provide a robust curriculum, a robust educational program. But I think we've done a good job of finding a good balance, and I think that that's going to be a continuing challenge for whoever the next superintendent of schools is. Sure.
Thank you. Our next question is from Dan.
John, why do you feel you are the best fit for the role of superintendent?
I think my longevity here is probably something that might set me apart from others. I think you know, I have a history with the community. I think I believe I've established some very good working relationships with, not only in the school department but in the municipal side of government, with families, certainly with students. And I think the fact that I have been a teacher, an assistant principal, a leader of a school, an instructional leader of a high school principal now for going on, you know, just entering my 12th year. I think because I have that kind of practical experience, being an educator, you know, walking the talk, so to speak, qualifies me to be the superintendent. I don't know that I am the best candidate. I hope you all think I am. But I don't know that I'm the best candidate, but I would hope that for whatever faults I may have, and I do have them, I would hope that few would challenge my work ethic or my commitment to the school district. I would hope that that would not be something that would challenge, and I think because of that, it qualifies me at least to be sitting in front of all of you.
Thank you. Lori is next.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Lori Capizzuto, staff paraprofessional at the Hood School. We've all heard the term 21st century in relation to learning and the classroom environment. So my question is, when you hear the term 21st century, what does that mean to you?
That's a great question. I think a lot of folks might say that 21st century learning is rooted in technology, and it's all about technology and what do we provide our students technologically. I don't know that I would say that is the first thing. I would say that certainly is a piece. Technology is important. It's a part of our daily lives, and I think we have a responsibility to make it a part of students' lives through the educational process. But I think it's more than that. The things that I would that I might highlight as being part of a 21st century education are we as a faculty at the high school, we had read a book a few years ago. We do book discussion groups quite often. Some folks in here participate in those. And we read a book called 21st Century Skills. And there was a quote in that book, and it read that to be illiterate in the 21st century would not be the inability to read or write, but it would be the inability to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. And that quote always struck me because I thought it was really about teaching students to look at things in different ways, and because not everybody learns in the same way, and to be able to share that knowledge and to package it differently. And I think that at the root of that is collaboration. So I think that certainly is a qualification for a 21st century learning. We need to provide students with opportunities to work together. The new middle high school is going to have those facilities. It's going to have those spaces. I mean, the school is designed around a collaborative education for students, and that's very exciting. Doesn't mean it's not happening now, but it's almost happening in a forced way because we're trying. You know, the school is going to be built for that purpose, and I think that's a good thing. But I think it's collaboration. I think it's the ability to think critically and to analyze, and that kind of gets back to the quote a little bit more, I think, about the unlearning and the relearning. I think it's about high expectations. I think it's about providing a broad curriculum. This may be a question later on this evening, I don't know, but if I were asked about something that I might be particularly proud of, the work that we've done at the high school, it's about adding 45 new courses to the curriculum since 2004. I think that's a great source of pride. We've introduced students to very challenging, exciting, and rigorous courses that I think are helping to prepare them to meet the demands of a rapidly changing world in the 21st century.
Continuing to be competitive.
Absolutely,
Beyond.
absolutely. And I don't want to rule out technology as a qualification. Again, I mean, it's part of daily life. We're moving in a different direction in September as a school, because we know that technology is something, I think we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to help students to use technology responsibly as part of their learning. And we're doing that, but we're going to be doing more of that, and I think there's a call to do more of that.
Great.
Could I add?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that the superintendent of schools is, someone who observes the K-12 landscape. There's no question about that. But it doesn't mean that certain things that are being done at a particular level, elementary, middle, or high school, aren't things that can't be replicated across all grade levels. In fact, I believe they can. But something that was very significant recently for us at the high school was our accreditation, our decennial accreditation process, of which I think the better part of the community was aware of, and culminated with a site visit in March, this past March. And the work that was done to prepare our school and our community for that accreditation process by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges was very much rooted in a recognition of what it meant to be a 21st century learner. It's about curriculum, it's about instruction, it's about assessment, it's about core values. It's about school resources for learning, it's about community resources for learning, and it's about leadership. And I think those are all pieces where students, they would not be the standards for accreditation if they weren't important to students. And rooted in them are the 21st century skills that I think that I spoke about just a moment ago. Thank you.
Our next question is from Wayne.
John,
Mr. Hardigan.
you may have already answered part of this Marsh question. How do you deal with funding unfunded state mandates? Not easy, I know.
No, I don't think it is easy, Wayne. It's not. It's not. I think it's, I think you have to be understanding of people's ability to, and respect people's ability to, in a sense, kind of the taxpayer, to essentially draw a line and say, look, there just is not much more we can do. And I don't know that we're that far off in a lot of respects with the mandates that are coming down and the things we're being asked to do in public education. But I think if you, and I think I did answer part of it with Mr. Gorgani's question, but I think the advocacy that the school department as a whole, with the superintendent in the leadership position, certainly is key. And I think the better job we do, and I think a very good job has been done in North Reading, of advocating for the needs of our school and putting together very real results of how this investment pays off and how we all benefit from that is one way. But I don't have an idea of how there is this pot of gold that we're all of a sudden just going to be able to tap into. I don't know that it exists, and I do think, unfortunately, that there is going to be a tipping point for all communities. I'll speak about Massachusetts because that's what I know best, but I think we're all feeling the pinch. I network with people at my level constantly, and there isn't a story that's told at one of our collaborative meetings of principals that we aren't all experiencing the same things. It's one more thing being asked, and I think, unfortunately, it does run the risk of taking away from what's most important, and that's what we have to do to fund the programs that benefit our students. But I guess because I want to give you an answer, I think it's about being a chief advocate for the schools, working with other folks in the school district to demonstrate that they're getting something, that the taxpayer is getting something for their investment, and I think we do that here. And it's about maintaining that, and you know, just working, you know, I know the superintendent is a member of the finance planning team that is established with some of the municipal officials in town, finance committee, board of selectmen and such. And I think that's a good strategy. You know, I think that the municipal side of government in this community is very, very cooperative, very understanding. You know, it's not something I've always experienced, and I don't think a lot of other communities do. It's somewhat, you know, interesting, I'll say, in a very good way. I think there's a very healthy relationship that exists, at least that's my view, that, you know, the community sees education as a priority, and has to this point, in my opinion, been, you know, significantly invested in that.
Thank you. Our next question is from Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Standardized testing and Common Core questions. What is your opinion of what is happening now with respect to MCAS, PARCC, and the impact of changes in curriculum and standardized testing on North Reading?
The Administrative Council unanimously supported piloting PARCC next year. I'm a member of the Administrative Council. I supported that decision, and I support it today. And I'll tell you why. There are two chief reasons. The first is, from the high school's perspective, we are introducing a new curriculum in grade 9. All students in grade 9 will be taking Algebra 1 in September for the first time. The teachers of that new course wanted to be a part of the pilot. And I thought that was good. If we could almost for a second just forget that it's PARCC, okay, if you will. But the fact that our teachers wanted to be part of the pilot so that they could get data that would help to gauge their success in the course that they had created and were going to be teaching, I thought was a good and healthy thing, and I still do. So that was a deciding factor for me when the Administrative Council was making the determination on whether or not it would pilot PARCC next year. Another reason that I think is important, the second reason is I'm of the belief, and I may be wrong, but I'm of the belief that something is coming and it's going to be different. It's not going to be the MCAS that we have all grown accustomed to. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's you know, I happen to believe in, you know, I'll call it some sort of exit test, you know, an MCAS-like test that does provide data on how we're doing as a district, and it measures a certain comprehension among students on a canon of knowledge that we think that, you know, is standards-based, and I think that's what the MCAS does. It may not be perfect, but I don't think it's going to be here very long, and so it's going to be something else that's coming. It's either going to be PARCC, or it's going to be MCAS 2 or something else. It's going to be, you know, a different exam, and I think it's going to be rooted in assessing students at a higher level, and because of that, changes need to be made. I think North Reading is maybe not unique, but I think is in a very good position to perform well, because we have data that shows our students perform well on standardized testing at all grade levels and on all different types of standardized testing. So it may not be you know, much cause for concern here, other than you know, that there are some growing pains that are experienced when you're going with something new. And I think that's probably where I see the, you know, maybe opposition might be too strong of a word, but for lack of a better one, that there is some resistance. I think it's more rooted in the fact that it is change and it's unknown and it hasn't been perfected, and are we as a district capable of handling computer-based testing? You know, those are the kinds of issues that I am hearing are more disconcerting for people than the idea of the testing itself. Does that answer? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next questioner is Matt.
Matthew.
How do you plan on engaging stakeholders in the school district community, including students, parents, educators, staff, and the North End community at large?
Well, a moment ago, I spoke about some of the things that I think can be done at all levels that I hope have been, I'm going to use the word, a hallmark of my work at the high school, and that is engaging people in conversation and being highly visible. I would hope, and boy, I hope that I have a reputation for being someone who's very committed to the work that I do, is very visible in the community, is very visible at school activities, participates in a meaningful way in boards and commissions that are community-based or school-based, Dollars for Scholars, the Rotary Club, things of that nature. And I have done that for a number of years. It's not something I just started doing all of a sudden because I thought someone might ask me a question like you just asked. You know, I think it's been a part of my work life since I started in this career, not just in North Reading even. And so, and the reason is, what I have found from that is that I have gotten an awful lot back from that. All this work is about is relationships. It's all about relationships, in my opinion. And what I've gotten back from that on a professional level is that I'd like to think that, at least I feel it, that there's a credibility that exists, that that people are more apt to support the schools because of that. That's a good thing. And I think people, I hope people know that I care about the work I do. And I think I would, you know, I'm not going to change that if I'm fortunate enough to become the next superintendent. It's going to be about listening to people, talking with people, being visible in the community, being very visible in schools. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually looking very forward to spending more time in an elementary school and at the middle school. I'm excited about that because it would be somewhat new to me. And you know, I'm sitting here thinking that there's a little story that I want to tell, and I don't know if it's going to be too. I'm going to tell it.
Do it.
At 3 o'clock today. At 3 o'clock today, I got an email from an elementary school teacher in this district. And I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to embarrass her. She was a teacher at the Hood School. And she wrote to me with a picture of her 2 children. Okay, it was a picture of her 2 children sitting in a big oyster. It was like a big statue oyster type thing. I don't know where it was. But she said that these are my 2 boys. And it made me think of the times that you've spent in my classroom reading to children. The world is your oyster. Good luck tonight. That's what she wrote to me, okay? True story. That happened at 3 o'clock today. I was very moved. I'm moved by it right now because it's not someone that I know all that well. But I get invited, mostly at the Hood School, but I have read as a guest reader at the Little School and at the Batchelder School. To Dr. Seuss Day, Read Across America, you know, and go into those schools, and it's fun, it's exciting, and I mean, I think the children appreciate it. Parents comment to me that, oh, my son saw you at the school, and I think that's good. You know, that's the kind of thing that's exciting about the work we do, and I would hope that I will find opportunities to be out in the schools, engaging in conversation with children, with teachers. You know, I'm going to have to do that in the community, certainly, and I'm doing a lot of that now, but I look forward to doing it even more. Is that okay? All right. Thank you.
Our next questioner is Eric.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Good. This will be no surprise to you.
All right.
My question's going to be. I mean, we've worked in this kind of a situation, so I want everyone else to hear this, but how would you describe your previous relationships in working with the various unions and associations in the district?
I'll describe it as good. I hope you would. Getting to know Mark a little bit more lately. We've been on a committee together for a while, and I think it's going well. But, you know, Eric, I've worked with you for more than 11 years now. You were the union president for 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. I always felt like we had a good and healthy and respectful relationship and never really talked to each other about, I don't know, I never really felt like I was talking to the union president. It was more about, you know, there was an issue that we kind of needed to work towards solving. I don't know, it sounds simple, but that's how I feel. I mean, I think the nice thing about North Reading is I really do believe that teachers are very committed to the work that they do. And you know, as the principal, I've had to, you know, how can you not respect that? You know, people do good work here. And so there's kind of a natural, you know, respect that's afforded because I think we all know that we're in this together and have a common goal, you know, and it's about doing the best we can for students. And you know, I'm not perfect, believe me, and I know I've made decisions that have not always gone in the direction that everyone might have hoped they would go, and we've had to iron a couple of things out along the way, whether it was you or, you know, haven't with Mark yet, but hopefully I won't have to. But, you know, I think we've been able to do that in a very positive, respectful, and constructive way. And I don't see that, you know, I am who I am. You know, I'm. Most of you know me and know me pretty well. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you know, this is, you know, I think you all know what's important to me. I'd like to think I know what's important to you, and that's about, you know, working in an environment that's supportive and respectful, and you know, provides you with the things you need to do your best work, and doesn't, you know, ask anything unreasonable of people. Those are, I think, the kinds of things that have driven what I believe to be a very good, positive working relationship with the NREA. I hope you feel the same way.
Our next questioner, Steve.
Most of my questions are.
It's good to see you again, Steve. How are you? Good, good.
I actually want to, before I get to my question, I want to ask you to extend what you've just done, because you were talking to a member of the teachers union, but there are several other unions in the system.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
Would you just mention those?
About the working relationship with the, yeah, I sat on a committee that negotiated the previous contract with the custodians. I have a little bit of negotiation experience there. You know, there's a paraprofessional union, there's certainly the clerks, the secretaries in the district. You know, again, I think it's about, I really just think it's about the human interactions, the interpersonal skills. You know, I said a few minutes ago that I think that this work is really all about relationships, and I hope I treat people with respect. I feel as though I've been treated with respect. I feel appreciated in this work. I would want to make sure that other people feel appreciated in their work. Paraprofessionals work at my school. Secretaries do, custodians do. You know, I think that there's a place at the table for everyone, and it's about listening. And you know, just I think if there's a clearly articulated vision on where we want to see the district go, and people have had a stake in developing that it makes it a little easier, because we're all kind of on the same path and we know what it takes to get there. So I would see that being the same.
The question that I have is about being a visible presence at the school and the community is important. How would you ensure that you are visible and accessible? We've already talked quite a bit about that a couple of times, but perhaps focus on how it will be different as superintendent than as principal of the school.
I don't know that it would be. I think it would be, there would be more of it. You know, I'm not a person that's like pinned down in my office all day. I don't believe I am. I sometimes have to think about that a little bit, because there is a lot of work to be done in the office. But you know, I think I do that work now. It would mean about doing it in all 5 schools. You know, I think the current superintendent, Kathy Willis, has done a nice job of dedicating a day a month with a principal in a school, and spends time. You know, there are other occasions too, but there was a very set schedule that she has had with each of the 5 schools, with each of the 5 principals, and I think that's been a good thing, where we interact in the school, and I think that's been a good and healthy thing. I could see myself, you know, replicating that in some form. That's the accessibility. I mean, I think the superintendent needs to go to people more than people need to come to the superintendent. I think, you know, I mean, I think that can be a little bit challenging for folks to make the time to come and find the superintendent or make the appointment with the superintendent. I think if the superintendent is out in the schools, that's the accessibility piece. It's a little bit more casual, and I think that can lend itself to some very good conversation. And you know, I think there's a place for the new superintendent to in a sense kind of conduct a listening tour, you know, if you will. I mean, I envision crafting an entry plan, because I think you know, while I've worked here for a little over 11 years now, you know, it's true that I haven't heard from some of the constituencies that the superintendent, I think, needs to hear from, because my work has been centralized at the high school. So there's certainly a place for that, and I would intend to do that. And I would hope, I would be quick to add that I think I do that in the role I have now. So it's not as though it's something new. I think it's just expanding that.
Thank you, Steve. Claudia is next.
Hi.
How will you ensure that every student in North Reading is able to be successful at school and ready for the future?
That's what it's all about, right? That's our vision as a district. You know, again, I'll point to the work that we've done at the high school. We have worked hard to prepare students to be productive citizens in the 21st century. That's our mantra here in North Reading, and I think what has changed for me, has changed for North Reading High School, is that we have done a better job of providing opportunities for all students of all abilities. Students with special needs, students who challenge themselves with the most rigorous courses at the advanced placement level, and everybody in between. And if you look at that spectrum, I could point to, and I'd be happy to talk in detail about them, but I could point to a number of initiatives across the board that have provided opportunities for students, all students, that did not exist 7, 8, 9 years ago. And we're continuing to do that. We're introducing a new program for students with special needs in September at the high school. So I think it's about recognizing and working toward providing the opportunities, putting the supports in place for students of all abilities, and to ensure that they are able to work to their highest level. And I think we've done that. You know, when I look at statistical data that's drawn from standardized testing, much of which is broken down into subgroups of learners, we're doing a very good job. We're doing a very good job as a school district for those students who are challenged, and also maintaining, you know, some very good standards for those students for whom the work may come a little bit more easily. And again, I'll talk about some very specific examples if you want, but I think in a general way, would you like me to?
I'd like to hear those, yeah.
Sure, okay. When I came to North Reading High School as the principal in 2003, there was one special education teacher for an alternative education program. That was it. Since that time, we've introduced a program for students with language-based disabilities. We've introduced a transition academy for postgraduate students. We've introduced a pre-vocational life skills program for students. We've introduced a full inclusion program for students, all of which have resulted, in my opinion, in a number of very good things. And I think probably the most important thing I would identify of all of those programs is the fact that we have more students being educated in their home district, and I think that's a great thing. And if you are fortunate enough to work in a school, as many of you in this room are, you know what I mean when you see kids interacting with the kids that live on their street now, when they previously were not attending school in North Reading, and it's a special thing. I think I spoke a moment ago about the introduction of 45 new courses at the high school since 2004. I mean, that's an astounding number, with very little additional staff, by the way. So it goes back to kind of the questions of Mark and Wayne about, you know, funding and how do you balance, you know, it's people, it's tapping into people's interests, running courses that teachers are excited about teaching that meet the needs of students. That's an example where I think, you know, we've done a very good job of providing some very interesting, challenging, and rigorous courses that have meaning to students and have prepared them well. Our advanced placement program has grown from 8 courses in 2004 to 17 advanced placement level courses running at the high school currently. There's an article in today's transcript about student performance on advanced placement exams, and North Reading is doing very, very well. 87 advanced placement exams administered in 2004, 399 exams administered in 2014. Again, an astounding number. I would bet there isn't a school in the area that's administering that number of advanced placement tests. We believe in open enrollment. It goes back to the question of access. We have no restrictions for students to take advanced placement classes except for any prerequisite course that they might need to take. They don't have to have a performance level cutoff, nothing like that. If you are interested and you want to take it, you can take it. And I think that has shown a couple of things. Number one, I think it's shown we believe in students I've always believed, and I believe today, that the greatest challenge any teacher faces is convincing kids that they can learn from you. And by providing them the access to those courses, we're saying to them, we believe in you because we're going to let you take a course that you probably really shouldn't be in because you're going to find it really, really difficult. But you know what? We think you can do well in this. And I think that's a great thing. That's a philosophical shift that didn't exist before. And moreover, I think we've had, while students may not necessarily perform as well as they might want on that test, they've been exposed to something that I think has had a benefit to them somewhere else. It could be on the SAT exams, of which we're doing very well. MCAS. It could be just on tapping into something that they're interested in and lighting a spark that, you know, now all of a sudden they've found an area that they might want to pursue beyond high school. I mean, that's a great thing too. So I'm hoping that those are examples where, you know, we've afforded a number of opportunities for students of all abilities that, you know, is a curriculum that's interesting to them and a curriculum that, that provides them the supports that they need to be able to do their very best work in whatever courses they want to take.
Great.
Madam Chair?
You're welcome.
Yes.
As clerk of this esteemed subcommittee, could I ask a follow-up, ask permission to ask a follow-up on that last question? John, in terms of specific skill sets, or I guess that's really the most important thing that you think students have to leave a high school with, and I know, you know, there's students at all different levels, but what are the things that they're going to have to walk away from North Reading High School with in order to be productive citizens in the 21st century?
I think the probably first and foremost is their ability to work with other people. I think that students need to work and learn collaboratively. It's not calling for them to work in isolation and be as successful. I mean, it's not how the world works now. It's why we're, you know, sending students on international trips. It's why we are building a distance learning lab in a new high school that's going to allow middle and high school students to speak to people all over the globe. I talked earlier about collaboration spaces. I mean, I think that's a chief qualification for anybody leaving school after their 13 years, K to 12, to go out into the world, is the ability to be able to talk with people, to work with people, and to get work done. So I think that's, you know, for me, that's a very important outcome that I would want for all students when they leave their high school career. You know, we live by values at the high school, and I think they're not all that dissimilar from those of the district, which I think is, you know, important. I mean, it's you know, we want to be kind of all moving in a very similar direction, but we believe, you know, we believe in citizenship, leadership through service, and lifelong learning. And I'd like to think that I could walk down the halls and ask anybody in the hallway, what are the 3 core values of us as a school, and that they would be able to recite those. I'm not so sure that everyone could, but I would hope that a good number could. But I think those are things that we hope for in all of our students, that you're a good person, you're a good citizen of your community, that you have a passion for learning, you know, that you want to do things, you want to challenge yourself, you want to continuously learn. You know, I think as educators, we have a responsibility to emulate that. That's why we run faculty book discussion groups, sometimes twice a year. You know, we engage at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning voluntarily to come in and talk about a book that's of interest to us that has to do with our work. And leadership through service, you know, very interesting story. You know, Congressman John Tierney earlier this year sent a letter to me. He was convening what he's calling a Congressional Youth Cabinet, and he was looking for student recommendations from all of the high schools in his district. And I nominated 2 students, and they met for the first time sometime, I'll say in May. And when they came back, they told me that they were the only 2 students representing the only school of all of the schools that were represented where the problem that they were facing was that there were not enough opportunities for students to hold elected positions in their school than there were the number of kids seeking to do that. And that all of the other schools, they were experiencing just the opposite. They were recruiting people to run for class officer positions and such. So their little work that they're going to do as part of the Congressional Youth Cabinet is to try to provide other opportunities for students to become leaders in their school. And I mean, that is just, to me, a story that speaks so well of what we would want from every student, is to demonstrate that you have the capacity to be a leader in service of others. I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that we live by at our school, that we try to impart to everybody who walks through those halls. And I think that they're important skills no matter the age of the student. That everybody is capable of being a good person, everybody is capable of wanting to learn more, and everybody is capable of leading in service of others. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 18 years old as a high school student.
Well, just so you know, before we go on TV every week at school committee, the chairman makes us recite the 3 key values: citizenship, leadership through service, and lifelong learning, because we had to learn those for the accreditation meeting.
No one has to look down at a piece of paper,
no.
correct? All right.
No.
Thank you.
Is that answer your question?
Yes.
Good, all right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. So we have a few moments for anyone on the committee to ask a clarifying question or another question. We have about 5 minutes, and then we'll ask you to close and also ask us questions. So.
Okay.
Any clarifications, questions from the committee? No? Well, because I'm chair, I get to ask one question.
All right.
All right. Something that's very important to me, and I know is important to many people here, is professional development of our educators and our staff. You talked a lot about the high school book club. I don't want to call it a book club, but it's sort of a book discussion club. And as a school committee, we're always struggling to find funds to support professional development in a meaningful way. I'm wondering, as superintendent, how you would go about cultivating a professional development learning community in the current budgetary environment that we have.
Very good question, and I think there are some very good seeds that have already been planted, and that I think are ripe for further growth. I think we have started as a school district to tap into the talents of our own people, and to use those folks to provide professional development to the district. There are some very, very talented people that know a heck of a lot of stuff, that can be very good about imparting what they know to others in their peer group. And there are people in this room that do an awful lot of that. And I don't want to embarrass anyone, but they know who they are. And there have been others. There have been a couple of professional development days that the superintendent has sponsored, where folks were able to sign up for workshops that they wanted to run, and that teachers were able to sign up for kind of concurrent sessions throughout the course of the day, and all run by our own folks. And I think that's a very good and healthy thing, and probably is something to be looked at as being expanded. I know for a fact, and administrators attended too. I attended a workshop on honing my skills on the use of Excel the last time we had so if anybody needs me to show them how to do a spreadsheet, I can show you. But I think there are opportunities for expanding that. And I think we all found that to be very valuable. And it's really a no-cost way of providing professional development for teachers, but it's not the only way in which we need to support professional development for teachers. And it is a challenge. I think we have a pretty good track record of supporting professional development requests for teachers in our own operating budgets as principals, but it's not a lot of money. And so therefore, I think we have to be creative in finding, either partnering maybe with neighboring communities, and when there is a professional development opportunity, is it something that maybe we look to, a Linfield or an Andover or Reading, or someplace close by, where maybe we can do something that's bringing schools together, bringing educators together from different districts under one umbrella, and pooling resources. I mean, I think that's an opportunity perhaps, but the work of education is changing very rapidly, and there's always something new coming along, and I think if we want to live by the whole lifelong learning value, it's important that we as educators also stay current in what we do in our practice. And You know, the book discussion groups have been very good for us as a school. I know other schools in North Reading host them as well. You know, we've got one that's going on right now for the fall. There's 19 people signed up to come in at 6:30 in the morning, you know, six times to talk. And I think that's a great thing. And it's, you know, we do it in the morning because a lot of our teachers coach or have younger children, and, you know, so we you know what, we work the schedule flexibly, and we, you know, that, what does that say? I mean, it says that people are interested and want to be a part of it and want to learn something new and, you know, pick up a little something maybe that they can use in their classroom. I think that's a great thing. So a couple of ideas there.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
So we have an opportunity for you to ask us anything or any questions, and to also give us a closing statement. And take a breath.
Would you prefer questions first?
Either. You are running the ship right now.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Choices.
I think it's important for me to hear from somebody on this panel. If I could ask for someone maybe not associated with the high school, of what you believe to be the thing that you are most proud of in the district. I'd like to know that.
It's about the community. I think North Reading is more sense of community than other school systems have in other countries. I noticed a lot of that. A lot of other schools throughout the district.
I also think that there's a tremendous commitment by the educators in this district. It's amazing to me, the commitment that, you know, again, I know you know it at the high school, but through all levels, it is amazing. And the sense of, you talked about specifically at the high school where, you know, kids, there's no loss for kids who want to get involved, and you see there's never a lack for students to fulfill their community service requirements. I'm talking just at the high school level, but even at the elementary school level, when we have student council elections, it's very exciting in 5th grade to see all these kids who want to do this, and they're making posters, and it's just fabulous. And then of course you have the tears when we get
someone doesn't make it.
But again, it's that commitment and that enthusiasm at all levels that I think is just terrific. I would like to see continue.
John, I've said this at school committee. For me, it's when you meet a student who's been out of North Reading for 4, 5, or 6 years, and they're successful. But by successful, I don't mean they make a lot of money and they have a big job. What I mean is they're still committed to their community wherever they live. I mean, most of them are polite, they're kind, and I've always been almost taken aback a little bit by the fact that the kids that, when you do meet them 5, 6, 7 years down the road, they haven't changed that much. They're older, they put on a little weight, they shave now, things like that.
They're good people.
But in general, they're good people. And so, you know, while that's, I guess that is a skill set that we teach in this school system, but that for me is the thing that I'm always most proud of this school district.
Well said.
Just one thing I see from my standpoint is the tremendous support that I get for the quality of our schools. You know, and it's not like we don't shortchange our schools. We tremendous support from my standpoint is the quality of our buildings. You know, it's always that, you know, it's not, it might sound kind of selfish, but it's tremendous support. It really is.
Clean, safe, warm, and dry.
There you go. You see that? Check.
Those are the other 3 words.
That was not rehearsed either.
Trish?
Hi, Trish.
Hi, John. Being that I've lived in North Reading all my life, and I'm a product of North Reading High School, I won't say when, and that my daughter is a product of North Reading High School. I think expanding on what Mel said, one of the things that I've seen throughout my life and that I see when I was a member of the school committee or a school building committee, and there's something that happens in North Reading public education. It happened when I was in the 1st grade, the first grade classroom in the little school, or I was the first 7th grade in what was then the junior high. And there's an immense sense of pride in the community that I guess has been nurtured and continues on. And I've seen it, as Mel said, when, you know, kids coming back to North Reading. My own daughter, part of the selection of the college that she went to was, you said, the your little mantra. The college that she went to, Springfield College. Spirit, mind, and body, and community and service to others. It went beyond North Reading, and she continues it. I see her friends continue it, both her friends from North Reading, her friends from Springfield College. It was something that was instilled in them as youth in the community, and when it comes back, it says volumes about what makes up North Reading. And everyone in this room, including yourself, has been a part of that happening. And like I said, I've been here all my life, and I'm still a Hornet. I'll always be.
I wonder, you might. Is Trish the only lifelong member of the community? Anybody else? I think you might be the only one on the committee.
I'm a townie.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. John, do you have any other questions for us?
You know, I think I'm okay with questions, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. It's nice, there was a lot of, you know, validation of what I think
Great.
I would expect to hear, but just,
I'd
you know.
like to point out, John, you know, just kind of touching on what Trish said, that, you know, you look at the change in this community as far as the support from the community for a new school. 10 years ago, trying to get that batch school or a new Swan Pond school was very difficult. We all remember going through that.
Yep.
Whereas the overwhelming support for this huge project, middle school, high school, and I think you're right about being in the community, the face of the community, the face of the schools, the education that people have got here. You know, I have 4 kids, 3 of them baseball players, by the way, ex-baseball players. And you know, they had a tremendous time in North Reading, and they were educated very well. And I, you know, in no small part to you and to Kathy Willis and to most of the people in this room who work in the schools, I applaud you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Great kids.
Thank
Great
you.
kids.
So we have a few minutes if you'd like to close.
Just, you know, just in closing, I don't know, somewhere around 4.5 years ago, I was sitting, you know, on the other side of the table when we were conducting the search to hire a superintendent of schools that resulted in the hiring of Kathy Willis, who I happen to think has been a fantastic superintendent of schools, and I'd like to think if I'm successful in this quest, that I would, you know, have picked up some things from her along the way that I would hope would be very valuable to the community. I think she's done a fantastic job, wonderful person to work with and for. I think, you know, the things I would want to leave you with are my sincerity about the work that I do, my commitment to this community. You know, there was a time, as I mentioned a couple of years ago, that I had looked for maybe what I thought at that time might have been a greener pasture, but I didn't find it, and now I know why. And I made the commitment to stay, and I'm glad that I did. And you know, I'm very committed to the work that I do. I hope others see that, and feel very strongly that students hear me say this on opening day every year, that, you know, your schooling experience is really one of those few things in life that you can't go back and repeat. If it doesn't go well, then there's no going back and changing that. It's kind of, you go through the motion and you're out, and I encourage them to do their best work. But I also think I ask that of the people that work at the school and would continue to do that. I think it's, you know, we need to establish how important this work is and why we're doing it. And I think we do a very good job of that. I would be most proud to be the person that is leading that across all 5 schools, and hope I have that opportunity. And I want to thank you all. I know that this is not an easy task, and it's a great commitment on your time, and you have a tough decision to make. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really do appreciate it, and it's been fun. Thank you. It really has.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm not going to shake hands because I know you have another appointment. It'll take too long. It's good to see you all. Have a great summer.
I think at this time we probably can take like a 10-minute recess, and then we'll be back and we will interview Patrick Daly.
So we always had said if it was smaller than...
Hey, Patrick.
We could use it, but not anymore.
It is like, I'm not going to disagree with Gary, it's the NTV, you know, we got the backbenchers, the front benchers. Yeah, exactly. We got the backbenchers, the front
I know.
benchers.
It's like back of the bus.
Yeah.
Phil, let me know when are we okay? Good? Excellent. You are on television. All right. So Dr. Daly, thank you so much for being here in front of our large committee. Our committee represents a broad spectrum of community members drawn from educators, staff, parents, etc., and of course Mel and me representing this full committee. The format of tonight's interview is really, as I mentioned in the email, very straightforward. You'll have the opportunity to give us an opening statement for 5 to 8 minutes, and then members of the committee have prepared questions to ask you. After that, we will allow you to ask us any questions, or we will ask clarifying questions, and you can give a closing statement. Do you have any questions before we start?
I don't believe so.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Great.
You want to introduce everybody?
Yeah,
wait, sorry, I knew I missed something. We're going to introduce ourselves, sorry. Start with Dan.
Steve Jerry.
Lori Capizzuto.
Eric Foreman.
Lillian Deesman.
Rich Genatasio.
Mark Organi.
Wayne Hardacre.
Karen Ericetti.
Mel Webster.
Christine Mull.
Mike Conley.
Glenn McKay.
Tricia Gardner-Colella.
David Johnson.
Thank you so much. Could I just say, how many people are parents of students in the district? Just to check in and just and then, four more current, and then and how many are at elementary level? Just curious. And how many at middle school and high school? That just helps to see. We've got a great cross section in this group, so excellent. Thank you. So about introduction to let you know myself. I know I work here and I work with many of you, and many of you know me, but I think this is a good opportunity to learn a little bit more about me as a candidate for superintendent in this district. I worked very closely with the superintendent, Kathleen Willis, for several years, and I was surprised. I didn't realize that as I'm ready to become a superintendent that I would have an opportunity to interview in North Reading. But the superintendent was ready to make her decision to move on, and I'm ready to be here tonight with you and to move into this new role. I first came up the hill when I interviewed at North Reading Middle School 5 years ago. There were lots of trees around. I was very excited. I took a picture, I sent it to my wife, and I said, this is where I want to be. I was very excited. I came into the building, I met the secretary, Maureen Cosolito, I met Principal John Fauché, the counselors were there. There were several teachers there working, very busy in the summer. And I said, this is a great place, this is where I want to be. Quite honestly, when I went into some of the classrooms, the technology, the building itself, I said the students, the community deserves a little bit better than this. And I'm so happy and so proud to have been such a part of building that new building, witnessing how this town and community came together to really build a new building. And I'm so excited for when that building opens in a couple of weeks. People are going to be so impressed and excited to see what's happening up there on the new building. A little bit about myself. I come from a family of teachers. Both of my parents are teachers. My brothers are both teachers. I have cousins who are art teachers, counselors. We joke we could all start a charter school or something someday. My father-in-law is actually superintendent of schools in New Jersey, and one of my first meetings with the family, he sat me down, he gave me a scenario, and he said, how would you handle that as an administrator? So I've been getting encouragement and support from my family, from my wife, from my children as well, and I'm ready to make this move at this time. You know, I started back in school. I studied both English and film, and you're going to see throughout a lot of things, I think, when I talk tonight, you'll see I have a passionate background with film and technology and also with content, curriculum, English. I worked very hard for my degrees. I went to East Hampton when I was still out in UMass. I worked for 1 year in a one-to-one tutorial kind of program with a student that was basically ready to drop out of school. And he had Tourette's syndrome, had a lot going on, and I worked one-to-one, learned so much about education at that time. Really got excited, got a job teaching in Burlington High School. At the same time, when I moved back to Boston, started my creative writing degree at Emerson College in writing literature and publishing. Very excited about writing and still very passionate about that. Went in as a poet, came out as a screenwriter, as I guess they always joke happens a lot at Emerson, and I was able to find a position at Waltham High School where I was able to teach video production. I actually was able to teach screenwriting in high school level. It was one of the most exciting opportunities. But I also had so much still passion around writing, and that was something I'm most proud about as a teacher, was working with students, special education students, special needs students, English language learners, high achievers, everyone. One of the things that I worked on there was developing a program called Writing with Colors that I've used with a lot of students throughout the district in Waltham. Very proud to say that we won an award for that in 2005. It got shared at the state level. It's being used throughout the districts in Waltham, Watertown, Haverhill, Georgetown. Very happy to see that we've brought it here, and a lot of us are using it in the classrooms here, and that's something I'm very proud of and want to see continue. While I was teaching in Waltham, I started to get interested in administration, because what happens is you realize you're doing so much in a teacher and you can affect so many students in your classroom, and you start realizing that I can do a little bit more. I can reach some more folks in a different position. And so I started to run after-school programs at the middle school level. I was in charge of 2 middle school programs. We had over 200 students in these programs. I supervised over 30 teachers at the middle school level. For 5 years, I was running this program. It was a grant-funded program, and I learned a lot about grants and grant management in that role. And what happened was I realized, you know what, I need to get into administration. I took an educational leadership degree and a curriculum and instructional technology degree, as I was still interested in both areas. And that's what really brought me to North Reading as an administrator. John Fauché, at that time I was in a doctoral program. John Fauché was the principal at the middle school. He really welcomed me and recognized that I was an aspiring superintendent. He saw that in me at some point in my future, and he really gave me so many opportunities for leadership. In the middle school, in that year I was working, leading some faculty meetings, heavily involved with evaluation, involved with hiring, involved with the new bullying and prevention intervention plan, involved with scheduling. John gave me so many opportunities as a leader. I really loved that position, and working with some of the folks in this room. At the end of that year, there was another position that became available. It was in curriculum and technology. Again, my 2 major passions. I was very excited to move into that role, which was, as you know, renamed into Director of Academic Services. That position encompassed a lot more than curriculum and technology, and it also included professional development, a large piece of human resources. It includes quite a bit of Title I, Title IX, which is really bullying and harassment, and many other things we like to jokingly say other that falls under my role. And some of you have worked very closely with me and know that there's a lot of different hats that I wear in the district. And I love that. That's one of the best parts about working in a district like North Reading, is getting to experience many different things. I love the opportunity working at the central office level, getting to work with the superintendent every day. Kathy Willis and many other superintendents have told me that central office experience, being able to work K-12, is the most important ingredient for becoming a superintendent. Getting into the buildings at all the levels, the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, understanding how different it is at each level, understanding how important it is that every student, no matter which school they go to in this district, no matter which teacher they have, that they all have the same opportunities and many similar experiences through the curriculum. Very, very important piece that I'm very proud to have done here. I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm going to speak a little bit about technology and curriculum. When I came in, we were using a different email system. We brought Gmail to the system. We brought Google Apps and Chromebooks, and using some of those different applications. We've done a lot with iPads. We worked very hard with North Reading Public Schools District Improvement Plan, which I'll refer to as NRPS 2016. In that plan, under technology, we talked about building up 2 different pieces. One is the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure of the buildings, the wiring, the hardware, but also the technology support, the technicians, and the digital learning specialists who are providing the support to our teachers to use technology in the classroom. We all know how important technology is, but it's just a tool, and it needs to be in the hands of a well-trained and confident teacher to use it to make a difference for children. On the curriculum side, I've been involved, as we're aware, there are many, many mandates and many things that are out there. I've been very involved with Common Core, with working with our 25 curriculum leaders throughout the district to work on common assessments and to bring many of these new curriculum in math and science and English language arts and literacy, which extends foreign language and the arts, physical education. Many of the curriculum leaders are here in this room, and it's great to see them involved. I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done, and I'm excited about the work we have to do in the future. I will say that at this time, I'm excited about the next steps. I'm excited about all that I've done and what will come next. I think that I'm at that point again where I'm realizing I've been able to bring about a lot of change and a lot of positive things in the role that I'm in, but I see that opportunity as superintendent to really take this district to the next level. And I'm excited to interview tonight and share those ideas with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. So we'll begin our question round, and the first question will be asked by Gina.
Thank you.
Given your experience in North Reading, what do you see as the biggest challenge North Reading Public Schools faces, and how do you propose to address it if you become superintendent?
Biggest challenge, I would say, and I've said this throughout my time here, North Reading is a very, very good, high-achieving district, and I think our challenge is to go from good to great. And I think that's one of the most important things to look at. What does that mean? It means that we're high achieving, but how do we make those differences in the lives of the students so that every student in this district is actually achieving at the highest level? It's about for the individual student to reach her potential. It's about for the individual student to be able to achieve what she needs to achieve in the classroom, academically, socially, and to bring all those programs along so that all the students are able to meet their highest potential. I think a big challenge that immediately awaits us is getting our new building open and working on the new building that's ahead. I've been heavily involved in the building project, and I know I've often thought that it's challenging as Kathy Willis, being here for 4 years constantly with the building project, and I see just how much there is to do as a superintendent and also with the building project. And I think that's something that I'd be able to step right into. I've been heavily involved in that every day of my life. I was up in the building today receiving computer equipment with Wayne, and there's so much going on right now. I think that is a big challenge that awaits us, and it's something that I think is very exciting as well, and that's where I would help lead us. Thank you.
Our next question is Linda.
Why do you feel you are the best fit for the role of superintendent of North Reading Public Schools?
Thank you. So I think that we've got, first of all, I love the opportunity that it's internal candidates. I think that's excellent. I love the idea of promoting within. Everyone that's asked me about this, I've said I'm ready for this, and I'm very excited about it. I've worked my whole life to be to this position. I think that you've got two very good candidates, and I think what I bring to the table, as I've mentioned before, is I've got that central office experience, and I've got K-12 experience. I've been in the classrooms. I really understood, and quite honestly, when I took this job 4 years ago, there was a lot to learn about elementary. I think that was my experience as a high school teacher, working in middle schools for so many years. I learned so much about elementary, and I feel like that's where I've really come to understand that I can hit the ground running with that idea. I think the other part, which I'm going to touch on a lot tonight, is so much of being a superintendent is being visible in the community, being out there, being involved in events, getting to know everybody in this room, getting to know everybody in the community at every event, and representing the district well, on camera, in public, speaking well. But I think there's another piece of it as well, and I think there's an advocacy piece for the district. And I think being involved at the state level, being involved with multi-district collaborations, being involved with the many associations that are out there. There are many things that are on the horizon that are coming down the pike that North Reading needs to be represented. And I think the superintendent not only represents the district in the district, but needs to represent the district out of the district and to fight for North Reading. And I think that's why I have a special skill set. I'm very involved in those things at this time. I was at the superintendent's conference last week. I'm very involved with different organizations, and I think that's something that I would continue to do as superintendent.
I'm just going to ask a quick follow-up. You mentioned the different organizations. Could you just speak to some of the different organizations that you've worked with, external to just our district?
Sure. Well, Mass Superintendents Association, I was just down there for a 4-day conference last week, working very closely with those folks. I've attended the joint school committee and superintendent's conference with some folks in this room. We're there, and that's where you really get the information first. You start hearing about the legal cases that are out there, so we can start to prepare and be proactive and start to prepare things and to move forward. I'm very involved with multi-district collaborations with many other districts in the SEAM district. I'm a part of a 23-district collaboration in the Merrimack Valley, the North Shore community, where we share all these ideas and things that are coming down the pike and all these initiatives we talk about. You know, getting out to the State House and saying, look, we need to stop. We need to slow down a little bit with some of these things so we can do them well. We believe in all these things. We need to do them well. A major thing that I think is coming is about finance reform, Chapter 70 reform. There are things that need to be done and things that need to be said for a district like North Reading needs to be represented. So those are some of the pieces there. Another big piece that I've been involved with is MASBO, which is the Business Association. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Certified Personnel Training Program. So that's another program that I was in. Again, I'm not certified now to be a business administrator, but I definitely, Carl Nelson and Michael have told me that information that I gathered there about all those programs is really what you need to know as a superintendent in order to understand what's happening in the business office.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, that's really
Yes.
helpful. Our next question is Amy.
Hi. We have all heard the term 21st century in relation to learning in the classroom environment.
Mhm.
When you hear the term 21st century, what does it mean to you?
Sure. So 21st century, it's funny, I teach a class right now called Best Practices in 21st Century. And it's a graduate online class. And I think the students come to that class thinking that 21st century means technology. They think it means using technology, and it means taking out cell phones or iPads and all that. And I think that is a part of it. But as I said earlier, technology is a tool. It's all about instruction. 21st century learning is about 21st century careers. It's about 21st century jobs. The jobs that existed for us growing up and the jobs that are going to exist for our students that are in kindergarten now are not the same. There's a different kind of student that needs to be involved. There's a different kind of expectation. Those students need to be collaborative. Those students need to be able to, if we go by the terms, Partnership for 21st Century, there's the 4 C's and all of that. But collaboration is key, and working together, being creative, and all of those aspects of a 21st century learner are absolutely essential. We need to do this in our education. We need to engage our students, and we need to change the way we teach. And the good thing about North Reading is we're already doing a lot of this stuff in our classrooms. I think there's a few more tricks, and there's things, and when you meet our new digital learning coordinator, I think you're going to be very excited. He's going to get right in the classroom with you and show you how to get there. Because being a 21st century student means a totally different future than what we were brought up to. What's happening, the reason why we have Common Core, the reason why we have 21st century college and career readiness standards is students were getting into these jobs and they were getting into college and they were saying, tell me what to do. They were saying, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. That's not the kind of education we need to do to prepare students for. 21st century education puts the problem out there and says, students, that's the problem. What do you need to solve it? And if you talk to these companies, and if you go to the seminars and some of the things I've been to with STEM education, where these big engineering companies come in, the jobs that are going to be there for the students are going to be problem-solving jobs. So it's a big part of it is about problem-solving skills. It's not necessarily mastering the content or mastering any one technology or one tool. It's about developing the kind of thinking skills, those habits of mind that really prepare you to be adaptable in any job. All of the businesses that are hiring say, just give us people that are hungry to learn, that are inquisitive, that have those problem-solving skills. We'll teach them what they need to know to do the job. And so that's our job in a 21st century education, is to get those students ready and prepared for those colleges and careers.
Thank you. Our next questioner is Trish.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You touched on a little bit with reaching out to the state level, but how do you think you would deal with funding for unfunded state mandates?
Mm-hmm. So this is one of the most important things I think we're facing when you go back to that question of our biggest challenges. I think this is what's coming down. So we were there last week and we said to the commissioner, they said, he was up on the stage and they said, can you tell us there's not anything else coming this year? And he just couldn't say that. And it's unbelievable that this is coming. I think the Superintendent's Association as a group needs to be more vocal and needs to say no and needs to say these are good ideas, but we need to do it in a different way. I think there is funding out there, and I think there's a big piece of this is policy. When we talk about what needs to be coming in terms of technology, there's bills that are out there that needs to be lobbied for in terms of funding as far as technology infrastructure, technology devices that are going to fund, and all of that trickles down to learning in the classroom every day, but also when we talk about testing that's coming that needs technology, I think this is all a part of it. But I think, as I was mentioning before about this financial reform, we've seen in the past several years that the foundation formula that's over 20 years old, we can't support. The number one thing we're supposed to be supporting is teachers in the classroom. And as a state and as a district, we're underfunding teachers in the classroom because the formula doesn't keep up with the changes to the high health insurance costs that are coming out that we're having to deal with, and the unbelievable costs for special education and for transportation. So districts are constantly trying to make that work, and they're not able to fund as they need to. So I think part of it is getting, this is a key time. As I mentioned, there's talks about Chapter 70 reform, foundation reform. The wealthiest districts are able to supplement those budgets with input from those taxpayers in the town or from private donations. Other districts, larger urban districts, get more state aid because of their numbers and their poverty levels. A district like North Reading is, and we talk about this all the time at school committee meetings, these unfunded mandates, we just can't meet them with what we're doing. We're doing a great job, we always make it work, but I think there is a place to really get out there and really advocate for changes to that funding so that we can put the money where it needs to go in the classroom with the teachers. That's really where the funding needs to be. Thank you.
Our next questioner is Nancy. Where's Nancy?
Yes, I am.
And common core issues. What is your opinion of what is happening with respect to MCAS, ARC, and the impact of changes in curriculum and standardized testing?
I think we can agree that if we think back to 1999 when MCAS first came out, I think there were a lot of people opposed in general to standardized testing. And I think to a certain degree, there's a lot of us still feel that way. There's that great cartoon that we've probably all seen where it says, we're going to make this fair for everyone, and there's a monkey and a rabbit and a fish and a bunch of, and it says, you all have to climb that tree. So I think standardizing in general, standardized testing, has its issues, but it needs to be put in its place. It does have a value, and I think we need to recognize as a district, as a school, I think we do, and I think we need to keep looking at that. It has a place, but it's not the end-all be-all. It doesn't predict everything, it doesn't change everything, it has its place. I think that the standardized testing that we've had have been valuable. When I started teaching in East Hampton, they didn't have chemistry, and that was because they didn't have any chemistry teachers, and kids got a lot of biology. That was happening in this state in 1998 with new standards, with curriculum. Remember, the MCAS are the standards. The tests just make sure that the school is teaching those curriculum standards. I think we all, as frustrating as it is as a classroom teacher, I think we all look back on these standards and these tests and say, they've brought us to a good place. We've had great conversations about education, and we know that our schools and our students are getting the very best. And we're very proud, I think, as educators in this Commonwealth, of the statistics that Massachusetts students are leading across the country. And if you compared Massachusetts to the rest of the world, we're in the top in all the categories for math and ELA on international testing like the TIMSS. Let's talk about where it's going next. So it's interesting that there's so much political going on about testing, and people that probably didn't want any testing are now defending MCAS, which is very interesting. And that's happening a lot. But what's happening is, I'm fair to say more than anyone in this district have spent time out at forums, out at seminars, reading information about what's happening next with testing. Computerized testing makes a lot of sense, okay? There are issues that need to be worked out for many ways, and they will be worked out, and we're going to fight to make sure they're worked out for students. There's lots of learning curve with new technology. But the ability to get that information turned around very quickly is huge for getting that data back and getting, quite honestly, that kind of turnaround in technology with all of the assessments we give, so that I know the teachers in this room that don't want to be entering ones and zeros into spreadsheets anymore. They want to be getting instant feedback from students so they can spend their time diagnosing and looking at the problem and working with the students to fix it, and not trying to correct papers, okay? So having testing on computers makes a lot of sense. You can ask different kinds of questions. You can go deeper. I've presented to the community and to the school committee several times about the kinds of questions on these next generation assessments that really get at different kind of skills. MCAS is a great test. It measures a lot of content. These new questions get at much deeper levels of thinking. There's transfer skills. That was one of the biggest things that students aren't able to do, as I mentioned with the 21st century education. Students are mastering testing, getting advanced on MCAS and on other state tests, and then going to college and taking remedial courses. And some of that is because they're learning it and mastering it by 10th grade, but they're not necessarily able to transfer that knowledge back to the bigger world, the bigger picture. Students are sometimes very good at, okay, I use this formula to solve this problem and this formula to solve this problem. but when a problem is thrown out there, how do I approach it? With the English language arts, they're being asked not just to respond to a prompt, but to look at multiple pieces of text, and text that's in not only literature, but also in scientific language, in primary source historical documents, and really finding evidence. If you look at all of the science, the math, the ELA, the cross-cutting concept is finding good evidence and supporting an argument. And these next generation assessments really do measure that. Again, it's not the end-all be-all. The test scores in this district, we all have a lot to be proud of. I think they're absolutely wonderful. I think there's always room for improvement. There's room for improvement for all students. But I think that data gives us valuable information, but we have to keep it in perspective. We also get information every single day in our classroom about what our kids are doing. Nobody knows how these kids are doing better than the teachers and specialists in those buildings. And I think it's time to look at data from state testing, but also from local assessments. And by assessment, I don't necessarily mean testing. I mean everything from asking kids, raise your hand if you understood this, or giving them different questions, all the different kinds of formative assessments that we give every day. So I do think testing has a very important place. It's not going away politically. Both sides agree that testing is a part of it. But I also think it's not the end-all be-all, and it definitely, individual testing should not be linked to teacher performance. And that would be, if that ever became, that would be something I'd be out there rallying in the front rows. If they started to try to introduce merit pay, or in other states they have state testing linked directly, there's a formula to a teacher performance. We've come up with a system in Massachusetts where there's 2 different ratings for educator evaluation. It is a part of it, but it's a small part. It's not the big end-all be-all. That part of it, as we know, keep it in its perspective. Testing is important, but it's not the end-all be-all. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next questioner is Matt.
How are you, Matt?
How do you plan on engaging stakeholders in the school district community, including students, parents, educators, staff, and the marketing community?
Absolutely. I think this is something that, as we know, this is the most important piece, I think, of the superintendent's role. It's getting all stakeholders involved. I'm thrilled that a former student that I work with is here tonight. Matt has been involved in so many different pieces of this along the way. I've worked with Matt actually when the superintendent brought me in to work with the students. We talked about a bring your own device program at the high school. We worked with the students to develop that piece. When I've worked with the PAWS group too, the things that I'm most proud of, PAWS is our social and emotional health, and then also our wellness committee. Part of what I do with that group is I bring together many stakeholders from the different pieces of the community. The Parks and Rec Department, the YMCA, we have students there, we have parents there, we have community, we've had the police involved with that group, Rotary Club. That kind of a group that brings together so many different ideas and so many different perspectives is so important to what we do here. The superintendent had me at many of her parent advisory council meetings, and quite honestly, if I were superintendent, I would have a standing agenda item for the person in my position, because I think there's so much more communication I could be doing. I think what's interesting about me, and the way I think this community perceives me, a lot of people know my name, they haven't seen me as much. I'm a little bit behind the scenes. But when I introduce myself, they say, oh, you're Patrick Daly. They read my articles in the newspaper, or they've seen me maybe on TV, and maybe I had a beard and they didn't recognize me at that time. They may have seen me or heard me at school committee meetings or things like that. But I think part of this is just more forums, more opportunities. I think it's all about relationships. I think getting out into this community, and right now I love when I get out there. I bring my kids to Barnum. I bring them to sporting events. I think they're going to be at a lot of Hornets sporting events over the future. I love getting to the Bash Fine Arts Night or the Wax Museum at the Hood, or getting into some of the 5th grade classrooms at the little school when I'm invited in there. We get to do some of the great projects that are going on there. The Relay for Life was a huge part for me. I made partnerships and friendships there when you're walking around the track at 4 in the morning and watching the sunrise over the hill. That's something that you really can't imagine. I think the superintendent being visible at events like that and throughout the community, I think that's key to building those relationships, so then when you have forums and you need people to come out, you've already got those relationships, and I think that's so important. That was something I would work so hard to. I love this community. I love this area. I just moved my family. We moved to Boxford. We're only about 20 minutes away. I love it up here, and I really want to stay in North Reading and be very involved in this community. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Patrick. Our next questioner is Bob.
How would you describe your previous relationships in working with the various unions and associations in this state?
I would say very collaborative. I've had some great opportunities in this role. I was very excited. Whenever this is just how I am. Whenever someone says, does someone want to volunteer, I'm usually saying, yeah, I want to be involved in that. I was involved with 2 different union negotiations, actually 2 times, so 4 times, and been very happy with the results. Kathy Willis is excellent at this, and I've learned so much from her and from some of the school committee members that are part of this. It's always so collaborative, right from the get-go, and we're very honest and upfront, and we share ideas, and we move forward. I was involved very much with the collective bargaining with the teachers union for educator evaluation. Again, one of the most collaborative groups that I've been a part of. Some of the people are here with this. I was involved with the bargaining for the creation of the curriculum leadership position, which wasn't there for a few years. Really worked hard to bring that back, and I think we've done a great job with that. I think there's room for improvement to make that even better. I worked on a subcommittee with the teacher negotiations, sort of a precursor to the negotiations that are coming up, to work on the possibility, Michael was very much involved with this as well, to look at the salary schedule and to look at if there's a possibility of changing the salary schedule and what that would look like. That's been wonderful. I have to say relationships, again, with the union leaders. Mark is here tonight, he's the union president. He and I have gone school to school with retail, one of our unfunded mandates, to help inform the teachers. And I can't think of a better relationship. The 2 of us have really got into the different schools, and that's really paid dividends, because I think people seeing that we're all on the same team. That's the biggest thing I talk about when I try to explain to people. Negotiation, it's not like the NFL where the money goes into the owner's pockets. I mean, the administrators of the town, we're all working from the same pie here. Our goal is all the same, and it's to work for those kids. And I think we're all on the same page here to make this work. And I think the trick is what I mentioned earlier. It's about getting more dollars to North Reading, because that's what we need so that we can distribute it equally. But I do think my relationship with the various union groups, I think, is very strong, and I look forward to those relationships continuing to grow.
Thank you. Our next questioner is Lillian.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Lil.
You did touch on being visible in the community.
Yes.
How would you ensure that you are visible and accessible?
Visible and accessible. I think this is really important. I think everyone who's worked with me right now knows I have a very open door. Currently, my door doesn't have a window, and I'm hearing from a lot of people that they think they need me to get a window on there so they know I'm in there, because they're very used to coming by, seeing me, and then coming in. I always have time to people. Sometimes I'm eating my lunch while we're talking. Sometimes I'm in the middle of 2 different things. I think there's probably everybody in this room has stopped by and seen me at all times. I am not a closed-door person. Unfortunately, I don't turn my phone off either. I think I've emailed most people in this room at 11 o'clock at night. Mr. Webster will send me news articles he's reading, and I always respond right away. I mean, my wife understands this. My wife is a daughter of a superintendent. She knows what's in there, and we've talked quite a bit about this. I do have young children, but we see this as a family. Just like when I came to the middle school, I knew that I wanted to marry my wife when we were at a middle school play in Waltham, and she said, I like this. I'm having a good time. I said, because this is the life. This is what it is. and this is what's out there. She, you know, I brought my kids to Barnum. I mean, this is what we're going to do. So being in the community is what it's all about. I know the long hours of being a superintendent. I know what that means. My wife and I have talked about this quite a bit, and she knows it's going to be long hours, late hours. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be out there, and she's going to be coming to meet me, and we're going to be spending family time out and among this community, because this is a great place to be. She saw that hill over there where they do the sledding right in front of the tree. And, yeah, we're sold. So being visible, being out there, getting to many different social events, sporting events, family events, it's all part of the job, and I'm very committed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next questioner is Karen. Not me. I'm the other.
Hi.
How will you ensure that every North Reading student is able to be successful at school and ready for the future?
So again, this comes back to what does this mean for all students to have opportunities? I think that's the key word, is that we need to find out. I didn't understand really what that meant until I was on the other side of an IEP meeting and looking at, you know, as a parent and seeing that's my baby and I need my baby to succeed. It's our job, it's our imperative as parents, as school committee people, as superintendents and leaders of this district to make sure that that experience for that individual child, first and foremost, safe, supported. Okay, if you're not feeling safe and supported from bullying, from teasing, from being uncomfortable in a classroom, for whatever reason, that is the first thing that needs to happen. And that's first and foremost, before anything else can take place. And then as a superintendent, it would be my job to make sure that all the other things are in place, so that the curriculum is in place, the instruction is in place, the teachers are well supported. The most important part of this is where the rubber meets the road, where the teachers and the students are interacting. I think supporting our many different special education programs. We have some of the best programs that I've seen in this Commonwealth. Honestly, our programs for autistic students and our Pathways program and many of these other programs are just unbelievable programs that we need to continue to support. Every student in this district right now is getting an opportunity to achieve, but I think they need more. We need more after-school programs for kids. We need more support for middle school, I think especially. As I mentioned, 5 years in that program, at-risk middle school, the most crucial time in a kid's life where so many parents will talk to me and say, what happened? My kid was here and then middle school happened and things. I think those are such key programs that we really need to build. And we do great things here. We figure out ways to make it work, but I want to see something like what I had in Waltham, which was a robust program, after-school program for kids with many different opportunities. I think we need to continue to grow and build those programs throughout our district, and that's something I would do as superintendent. Thanks, Karen.
Patrick, I just want to follow on to that. So if you're looking at students who are they're graduating, they're leaving high school, what skill set or skill, if it's one skill, do you think that we need to send those students off with to best ensure that they're successful in life?
I think it's the confidence, I think is huge. Confidence and just that innate desire and the quest for knowledge, lifelong learner. I think we hear that term thrown around a lot. What does that mean? It means getting them hooked on reading or passionate about reading, passionate about solving problems, excited about it, and this could be through community service, it could be through personal fitness, it could be through many different things. Finding for each individual student what is that one thing that makes them who they are, and then wanting to get out there and share that and build that and develop that. I think that's a general term, but I think we do that through education. Education means books, it means classrooms, but it also means, one of my goals, knock on wood, I want to be in that physical fitness center in the morning. I've talked to Claudia about this many times. I want to be showing that I'm going to get myself in great shape. I want to be providing wellness to all these kids. Yeah, exactly. But I think just inspiring that and by modeling that and by showing, I love to show, I'm a lifelong learner, and modeling that for other people and showing what that means. I think instilling that in every single student, and also just the personalization, getting to know every student, as many as absolutely possible, knowing all their names, all their wishes, all their dreams, and really trying to encourage them to move forward. I think as a superintendent, you can try to do as much of that as possible. And I know I had great personal relationships with the superintendents in my district, and I would want to try and have that with as many students as possible in North Reading as well.
Regarding the health center, make sure you send me email updates on how you're doing.
I will.
Because I won't be there.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
It'll be on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to ask the rest of the committee, that's the end of our formal questions, although I do have a follow-up. Does anyone else have a clarification or a follow-up? Steve?
We haven't met before.
Sure.
I served in the school committee for many years.
Nice to meet you.
When David Troughton was our superintendent, he had a kind of model for education. It's the role of the students to learn. It's the role of the teachers to make sure that they're successful. The role of the administration to make sure that the teachers are successful and so on. It's a model that starts with the student. And I've heard a lot of exciting things from you. And I want to give you a chance to explore this because so much of what you were saying seemed to start from the administration. And I want to give you a chance to correct me if I'm reading that balance wrong. I explore that. Who is the leading force in this process in your mind?
Well, like you say, it's all about the students. The students are the force in the classroom. If a student, I've always said as an educator, a student that wants to learn and is excited about learning, we can do anything with, and every teacher will do that with. I think when there's something where they don't want to learn or they can't learn, I think that's a different issue, and we need to work on those issues as well. I think that you know, I'm interviewing a superintendent trying to talk about things that I think are important from the superintendent level, but as you say, it's all about starting from the bottom up. And I think from the classroom level, I think it's so important to have not top-down initiatives, but really to have teacher-driven initiatives, to have conversations with everyone involved. And I think in a classroom, in a student-centered classroom, this is where it all is. When we talk about even with technology, it's funny, when you look at classrooms, the idea of the board at the front of the room, all of that being a really teacher-driven instruction, it's really all about students and when we talk about problem-based learning or project-based learning, it's putting the idea out in the classroom and letting students explore those ideas and follow some of their own interests. And from there, then they are able to go to the teacher, who is the guide, to help them get the answers and the solutions that they need. Yes, I agree with that idea that administration supports, that is our goal, is to support the teachers and the administrators and the principals, who then support the teachers, who then support the students. And I think it's, you know, obviously, it's all about the students and their ideas moving forward that we want to work around. Thank you.
Any other clarification questions? Amy? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm quick to see everyone's hand. Anybody else? Okay. So my question is about professional development, something that I talk a lot about at school committee meetings. In North Reading, we have a very limited budget around funding professional development. And I'm wondering, if you were selected to be superintendent, how would you foster a professional development environment or a learning community?
Absolutely. So I think one of the important things is to try and restore and save some of the funding, because I think that's very important. We've done a great job in this district of recognizing the many talents of what we have in-house and really finding teachers who are experts in many areas and having those teachers either attend trainings and come back and train the trainer, which is a very successful model, or also, you know, just building on some other things that they may have in their personal experience, through their graduate school experience, and really bringing that and sharing that as well. But I think it's also very important sometimes to have outside people come in, to bring in experts. And I'm hearing that a lot. We've done a lot of professional development surveys. A lot of educators want to hear from some experts in the field, and I think that we need to find ways to fund those resources so that we can develop those programs as well. So I think it's both. I'm very excited about, you know, with our new digital learning coordinator, one thing we were talking about the other day is, you know, looking at the educator evaluation rubric and identifying key elements and being able to make connections for teachers to see, okay, we're going to offer this training. Not only are you going to learn this, but it's also going to help you do some of these things in educator evaluation. The educator evaluation really is the foundation of everything we're doing in education. If you really look at those elements of the rubric, that's really what we're doing every day. And if we can get professional development in each of those elements, I think we're going to see across the board as a district, we're really going to grow. So I think focusing around certain key areas, because professional development, we could get it in everything. I think needing to focus and really develop. One thing I'm very proud of with our iPad program, we have more than a third of our district, the educators have been educated with sustained professional development. A lot of the teachers who were part of that professional development this year didn't know what they didn't know and came out of it. The survey results were clear, saying, you know, this was a large time commitment, but I learned things I didn't even know about using a iPad or other mobile technology in the classroom that now I can bring back and I can share with others. So I really think that's the key, is building those strong teacher foundations that they can then train others in their building. So I'm very excited now that those teachers are able to go back and share and build that way in the classroom.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So if there are no other clarification questions, now is your opportunity to ask us questions, if you have any.
Sure.
And then if you would like to share your closing statement with us as well.
Absolutely, great. I think I'd like to hear, just because I've spoken about a few things tonight, but what do some people in the room think, what the most important characteristics that you're looking for in the next superintendent?
I'm gonna hit that thing.
I'll start. I mean, there's a lot of them from a school committee member's standpoint, from a parent of former students in the district. I really think that reaching out and building and establishing strong relationships with the community and continuing those on a regular basis is it's not the most important thing, because the most important thing is educating our kids and getting them into a successful future.
Right.
But for me, you know, and I'll be blunt and say what Kathy Willis has done in terms of opening up the district, where there are very few secrets because one of you guys or women is writing an article every week in the paper and everything is out there. That needs to continue. Second thing is we need to make sure, and this is I know it's trite, but we need to make sure we educate the whole child. And I think you've spoken about that a little bit, helping students find what they're best in and then helping them to achieve that. So those are the two things for me.
Absolutely.
Other thoughts?
I think from a teacher's standpoint, not to lose sight, we're in the trenches, we're dealing with 30 kids in a classroom.
Right.
Most of us, my classes are all electives, so I have a mixed bag of kids in there, from the valedictorian to the severely, someone on an IEP, and dealing with all different learning levels. So as a superintendent, I would hope that the person that takes the job would understand and kind of look back at what they were dealing with in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Others? Don't be shy. I'm a talker, so I'll do.
I think for a superintendent, someone who knows my name, someone if I have an email, if I have a question, I feel very comfortable emailing them, approaching them about that question, and get an answer in a reasonable amount of time, that sort of thing. As a teacher, but I think for the students as well. I mean, certainly to know every student in the district's name, I would not expect that. But, to recognize the faces and, offer, a friendly smile and a hey, how's it going kind of thing would be really nice. Not have someone behind a closed door, behind a desk, but someone walking the halls and visible in all the buildings.
Absolutely.
I'll add, if we have 2,600 students, I would expect you to know 2,000 names.
Right.
So it's not all of them, but I think that's
good.
reasonable.
That's a good number. That's a good number.
If there's somebody else, I'll jump in. For me, it's somebody who is a systems thinker and wants to bring sort of new ideas to the fold. We've been kind of, very lucky with Kathy Willis's leadership. But I think that with our new building and all the opportunities that we have with that space and just our community, we need somebody who can actually just take us where we need to go next, because there's so many different things coming. We've dealt with so many unfunded mandates as a school committee, and knowing, just checking off the boxes to me is not the way North Reading does things. Although we have to sometimes, but I would like someone to push the envelope a little bit in terms of taking us to that place which, continues our leadership as a school district in our wider community. So. Do you have any other questions for us? You don't have to. No pressure.
Well, I'm okay. That was good. That was very informative, so thank you.
Great. So feel free to share any closing thoughts you have with us, and take as much time as you want.
Sure. So thank you again for this opportunity. It was really wonderful to be here. As we say, we're all here for one reason, and that's the kids of North Reading. And I think what we have going, the most important thing I think I've learned in central office experience the last few years, the superintendent does not do anything on her own. The decisions that are made every day are done in collaboration with our central office team, with our administrative team, with our teachers, with parents, with the community, a great working relationship, an open relationship with the school committee. There are certain areas where school committee has certain decisions to be made, and they're in charge of the policy. Superintendent is in charge of administration. There are places where they combine, and I think open and honest communication between all stakeholders has been modeled very well for me in my last 4 years. My role here, I see NRPS 2016 as one of the greatest things I've been a part of. This, again, is our district plan. As a teacher, we had district plans in other districts. No one ever knew what they were. They weren't referred to. We didn't believe in it. I do feel that people refer to this document and believe in it. I keep saying now, when is it 2020 or beyond? I mean, we need to update this plan and keep moving forward. And really, the work that we're doing is going to continue. I think the great work that's going on in this district, we've made a lot of strides in the last several years, and I think we're really going to take it to that next place. I think that what I bring to the table especially is communication. I really understand technology, and I think that the way the world works, one of the things we talked about last week is the way students learn with technology, the way parents learn, the parents of our students now. We talk about digital natives coming. The personalization of communication, using Twitter, using some of these other social mediums to communicate. This is really important, I think, for the future and for leaders. And I think that the kind of leader that I would want to be is one that communicates in many different forums and reaches many different audiences, because everybody wants their voice to be heard. One of the things in my job that I think has been very important is when I get to sit with parents who come to me when they have an issue. Very often I am the appeal process for different things that happen in this district. And when I sit with parents, again, the most important thing that I hear from them is they want me to understand their child. And the most important thing, once again, is that their child feels safe and supported. Very often, whether it's a parent or a teacher or whoever's in my office, they need someone who's going to listen. And I think that's the most important thing that a superintendent can do. Have an open door, listen to issues. If an issue gets brought to a school committee member, let's talk about it. Let's bring that parent in, let's bring that school committee member in, let's talk and deal with this issue as needs to happen. Because very often, I think we all understand that every administrator, teacher, everyone in this district has the student's best interests. And we all assume positive intent, but sometimes there's a communication breakdown. And I think that 99% of the time, whenever there is a problem that arises, it's really about opening up that communication, listening to both sides, and sharing that information. And we're able to resolve so many problems in that respect, and I think that's where it is. I will say that I think the people that got to see me this year, when I got into the classrooms and I was able to teach the students and work with the students who were training for the park assessment, I think people got to see me in a little different light, got to see me actually teach a class with kids. And you know, with respect to what Lil said, I am not that far removed from the classroom. I have not forgotten what it's like there. I have two brothers that remind me every day, don't forget what it's like in that classroom. Because that is, as I said before, with those students there in front of you and the teaching, that's what this is all about. And my job as superintendent and my job as Director of Academic Services is to make sure that those roadblocks, those unfunded mandates, those other pieces don't get in the way of that teacher and student relationship with the instruction. That's where this is all about, and that's the most important thing. I think that I have a lot to offer. I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the state right now that I'm very much involved in at many different levels. I think that I bring a unique skill set to this table, that I am going to be able to work both in North Reading, in this community, and also represent us very well outside of the community, to advocate and to bring back to this district everything that we need to make students the most successful they can be. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank
you. Well, we are going to take a short...
well, actually, why don't you, actually, instead of a recess, if you walk Patrick out, then we can just get right back into...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether I was going to say, if you need to use the bathroom,
oh,
go
no,
for 2
no.
minutes.
No bathroom
breaks.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, these two guys, I'm so proud of this community and the two people that we interviewed here tonight. It says volumes about this school district. Those two guys are unbelievable. I mean, I love both of them. They're just unbelievable. And I love this is a great committee. And the attentiveness and the note-taking that was going on and the follow-on questions. I don't envy those people on the school committee having to make this decision, I'll tell you that right now. Oh, wait, I'm on the school.
Those people?
Those people, yeah. Darn. But this was awesome. That's all I want to say.
That doesn't let you out of getting to the fitness room.
No.
So we had talked about just voting and then having a discussion if we needed. We
Right.
still want to do that. Do we want to just talk a little bit now?
So you have to actually make a decision. Well, you're a member of the public.
I'm just...
Are we still on
This is
camera?
really going to her head.
She's going to be insufferable the next school committee meeting. Forget about it.
It's all right.
One thing.
Karen, don't get too comfortable, Matt J.
Did you invite input from the public?
No.
No.
Didn't. Thanks, Trish.
You're
Sorry.
welcome. I think, as both candidates and we have commented that this committee is very dynamic,
And I certainly know both candidates and heard their answers probably in a very different way than a parent or, you know, someone at a different level in, you know, the district did. And so I would enjoy conversation and hearing how some people interpreted the answers versus me. And certainly, I guess if people feel it's relevant, past experience as they're both internal candidates.
Great. Does anyone have an objection to that? And if so, we can get started, and feel free to share.
That's fine. I'll give you my impression as a school committee member, parent of kids who were in the district. It was interesting that I felt both gave great answers, but I felt that both gave answers that I feel they both are qualified to move to the next level of the school committee. It was interesting. I'm not making a judgment on which answers were better, but they were at a different level. Patrick's was more detailed. A lot more specifics about different things that go on in the classroom and in the district, and he emphasized his central office experience. And I think John's were more of, I don't want to say Patrick's lack leadership, but more of a kind of a leadership, if I'm in charge of the whole district, more kind of big picture answers. But that said, I think they both gave great answers. And I think both are qualified to be interviewed by the school committee by a long shot. I don't think there's any reason for either of them not to go forward.
I would just offer a different perspective.
As a parent, right?
As a parent,
yes,
not a school committee
right.
member. I didn't get the sense from Patrick, even after he spoke for an hour, even through his resume and listening to him speak and answer the questions. I didn't get a sense of leadership. Like he didn't exude the leadership capabilities that I would have expected from a candidate for this position. And as he weaved through the examples of answering questions, you know what? There didn't seem to be a lot of demonstrated successes that he kind of took the lead on. Participates in a lot of things, but not necessarily the leader and you know, taking charge and really, you know, problem solving from a more of a leadership perspective. To me, you know, you read through the criteria that the, you know, I think the school committee put out. I don't think he hits on a lot of the bullets. I mean, he hits solidly on some of them, but not on all of them. Whereas my perspective on John is very different. I think, you know, I read through the criteria of every bullet, and you know, he's on every single one of them. So I think Patrick's got some potential. I don't think he is in the same playing field right now as John. So I just differ in your opinion.
Okay. Good.
I'd like to speak also as a parent, been around for a while, and I think Patrick's very technically savvy and he knows kind of what's going on, but I made a note that the first time he mentioned kids prior to Steve's follow-up was in the next to the last question. So to me, that's not what I'm looking for in a superintendent. John, I know, can be the face of this community. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who can lead the schools, be the face of the community, be a personable and visible leader in the schools. Patrick also made a statement in his closing argument where he said, work where you're doing, we need to continue. And I agree with him, and I think that's the position he should be in, to continue that work. Whereas John should be the superintendent of schools. I think we're doing a real disservice to the committee if we just put them both forward. I think we should make a decision. That's why I sent that email saying, okay, let's pick 1, 0, or 2, but then I think we also should say, who's our top choice? Because a lot of people in the room, and I know most of the people in the room work with both of these candidates, and they might work with one more than the other, and they may feel like we want to put both of them through and let the school committee decide. Well, then I think we just wasted, whatever many hours of our lives by being on this committee if we're just going to allow the school committee to decide without having some kind of a mandate to say, we want to put through this candidate. We feel, the majority of us feel, that this is the best candidate to lead the North Reading schools.
That's interesting because I think prior to us knowing that this all had to be in open session, Karen and I were saying, no, if we decide to put both candidates forward, the school committee won't know who received how many votes or what.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is a public session now, the school committee is going to know if one candidate gets 25 yeses and one gets 13 yeses, we're going to know that. So that should have, to me, it would have some bearing on me viewing this going forward. I think your other point, I think if people, I think that should be an option if people want to put on their ballot that they, if they want to move both forward but feel one is stronger than the other. I think that that's an option that people should have to put that on their ballot. It's not, it's not what we're, it's not what we asked for. I'm just saying that I think myself as a school committee member, I'm trying, just tonight, I'm trying not to form an opinion because we're going to have to interview either one or both of these again. Well, I mean, I think I did give an opinion on the kind of answers that I saw in terms of one being, more specific and tactical, and one I viewed answers as being more in a leadership mode, which I felt, John's answers were. And I think Dan's point about the criteria, I think John really does nail the criteria that we had in those. But I think we will see now how many votes each candidate gets, and I think that will have an impact on us. But go ahead, I know you wanted to finish.
No, that's basically it. Again, I just want to reiterate, though, I think that we didn't do our job if we just say, let's put them both forward.
Without any kind of indication as to...
Correct.
Right.
Who's the stronger candidate?
Right. I think you might be right.
Oh, Lori, sorry.
Just a quick opinion. I think that the role of the superintendent is sort of ambassadorial, if you will. And I think it speaks to what Jen was saying, that you need someone, they both see the big picture, but you need a leader and you need a foot soldier. So I think, in my mind, Patrick is an excellent candidate, but he's the good foot soldier. He knows what he's doing. He's good at what he does. So to take this district and take each student as far as they can go, that's exactly where he should be, because he's got he's on the pulse of what's happening. So I think that with that kind of person, with that kind of input, that's what a superintendent needs. And I think that John gets that bigger picture. John can certainly take that leadership role. I think that I'm a little hesitant that Patrick might not be able to delegate as much. I think because he's on so many things and has his hands in so many things, and it's going to be really difficult for him to sort of let a few things go and let teachers do what they need to be doing without sort of micromanaging, I guess is the way to put it. So it just my opinion. I think he's just a really good person. We need Patrick where Patrick is.
I hate to be the black sheep.
You're not gonna be. You're not gonna be.
I have a different perspective, and I feel, not knowing John well, that he came very much from, I heard high school, and occasional talk about the and elementary school. I don't know why you guys think all technology. Patrick has brought in so much language arts and so much writing with colors into our classes. He's been into our classes. He has come to the elementary school, and not because he knew he was going to get this job. He's come into our 5th grade classes many times since he's been here 4 years ago. He's come into our social studies projects. He's come into various other aspects of wanting to know, I think, the kids. He's actually taught classes. He came in and taught all the teachers the writing with colors. He was absolutely amazing at the way he taught that class. So, again, it sounds, well, I don't know John well. I think he interviewed very well, but I do think Patrick should be considered. I think, as he said, maybe he spoke too much about not the kids and what he would do as a superintendent, because that's the job he's applying, position he's applying for. But I have seen him work with kids, and I have seen him show up on numerous occasions to support the kids in the elementary school. And as elementary teachers, I think we always feel the superintendent, not Kathy Willis, she was excellent, but that they are for us, and they
It's hard to like.
I was definitely not first. I have my hand up.
So we'll start with Trish and then we'll work back this way.
Not being a classroom teacher and being a past member of the school committee, and having worked with superintendents at that level of being a member of the school committee, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective on what a superintendent is, maybe. But I think, I don't know Patrick that well. As far, I'm kind of the opposite of you. When I left the school committee, I became a member of the high school council because my daughter, as a parent. And after she graduated, I stayed on the high school council as the community representative. I still am. I'm very much a whole child, teach the whole child person. Technically, I heard a lot of very, very good things, and whoever said foot soldier, I think kind of, made a mark with that. I heard a lot of that from Patrick, but there were two words that I actually wrote them down that kept coming into my head, listening to John, listening to Patrick. I heard a lot of we from John, and a lot of we being the entire community, from the infant to the grave, I guess you could say, and the education of the whole child. I heard a lot of I from Patrick. And I don't think it was meant intentionally as a centristic type of thing, but that, I guess, foot soldier or that technology-based, I think that he probably has an incredible future at some point in the future as a superintendent. I don't think he's had the experience of the entire system enough to go to that whole child place that I'm, that I look at.
What do you mean by whole system? You mean at the elementary school level, at the early childhood level?
At all of it. So even supporting, I look at a superintendent supporting the community as well, the entire community, not just within the walls of North Reading Public Schools, whether it be the elementary school, the middle school, or the high school. Looking beyond that, of having forward vision of not necessarily adult education, but yeah, maybe. What happens beyond and what happens before. Yeah, you've got early intervention, you've got preschools and da-da-da-da-da. But the entire spectrum of that whole life experience and what education means from the day you're born till the day you die. And not just the technical part of it.
Mm-hmm. Claudia, and I think Steve, did you
Amy.
And Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go straight down.
I think I'm one of the people in this room who has the unique perspective of working for both of these very good men that were interviewed here tonight. I can't say that more strongly than I just did. Two very good men were interviewed here tonight. I watch John on a daily, I work at the high school, so I watch John on a daily basis smile, just like this, as even a keel as you could ever imagine, and manage that building, and the people who work and live in it, from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, with a skill that I've worked for other principals. He is stellar. He's just an incredible principal. I've also worked with Patrick. He is my leader as I'm a curriculum specialist also, so he is my leader in that role. I've sat on committees with him. I'm on the PAWS committee, to which he made reference tonight. I'm on the Wellness Advisory Committee, to which he made reference tonight. He is a caring and compassionate individual. He might not have said the word kid until near the end of his talk, but he cares about the kids in this district. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Having said that about both of those good men, John Bernard is a leader who can oversee so many different pieces of a puzzle and do it with such, he's so adept at it. And I think Patrick and the role that he's in that Laura mentioned is brilliant. I'm afraid that we'll lose him, you know, to another district.
Replace him would be.
I think he's brilliant. And I know that he's over, I know he's, the way we are stretched, he is stretched. And so I think the communication piece would tip toward John, in my opinion, as a manager of a high school, as a manager and leader of that community. But I certainly don't want to understate, or I just can't say enough about what a good man Patrick is and what skills he has and that he does care about the kids and the teachers in this community. He has served us very well. So I don't want to shorten what I say about him here. I think John has the image for me.
Amy?
Well, really, I agree with so many things everyone's saying. I'm fortunate I know both candidates pretty well and work with them both pretty closely. I was shocked how similar their answers were. I mean, I guess Claudia and I were talking, I mean, they are both internal candidates, so you could say they drink the same Kool-Aid or whatever. But their answers were so similar, but yet they're such different candidates, and I just found that fascinating, that approach. I think what a dream team they are now and could continue to be. I think we probably all realize in this room that whatever candidate we don't pick, the district will lose because they are excellent candidates that somebody in another district will scoop up, and they're both very ambitious men who have, you know, dreams and qualifications to be superintendent. So that's the unfortunate side of our decision, is we will lose one eventually. I really have to agree with Claudia. I can't say enough about, I guess, what a rock John Bernard is. Whether, you know, whatever I might encounter, especially on the younger side or the newer side of being a teacher, I always feel very confident going to John, knowing he's going to give me an answer that's going to work, because he can see the big picture like nobody else can. And I've worked for, this is my third district, I've worked for a few other principals. I also come from a family of teachers, and feedback I've gotten from, you know, friends, family in other districts, as well as other encounters I've had with principals. I've never seen anything like it before. And to have a candidate who's well liked by parents, teachers, students, the school committee, etc., it's impossible. It really is, to have someone in his position be so well liked by everybody. And I think that's our answer right there, is that he's such a rock. And so what a dream team they would make to have John Bernard, someone who's just a rock, and someone I think we could really have faith to always make the right choice. And I say that with a lot of confidence, as I say that man really does make the right choice a lot of time. And then just be surrounded by people who just have the ambition and the energy like Patrick to be feeding him all these great new initiatives and ideas, but then have that rock to weigh it and the experience to weigh it and decide which way to move forward.
Just to address that question and not give you a specific answer, but I think one of the fears of the school committee in fighting to do this internally was that we may lose one of the candidates. And so I think that regardless of who's chosen, I think it's up to the school committee and the new superintendent to try to figure out a way to delay that candidate leaving and try to find a way to challenge that person, whether it's adding new responsibility, adding new roles, whichever one. Could it be financial? I don't know. I don't think either of these men are driven financially by, I think they're driven to be educators and to run a school system. But I think that the school committee has discussed this, and we're well aware of this issue, and we've already started thinking about solutions, if, you know, to try to keep both of them around for as long as we can.
And also just, I have to, I guess, compliment the school committee in the first place for hiring these people, that we have such a dynamic pool. You know, we have, you know, maybe John, who's a little bit more experienced or has more years, but then, you know, Patrick can keep going down, and we have lots of young people in the district that have so much energy and so much excitement that the school committee can keep bringing in those people. In 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we have these internal candidates that look like this. We'll be a district that just is on the top forever.
I wish we could take the credit, but but I will say,
we didn't hire them.
Dr. Troughton actually hired John. And John,
with the committee.
For those who were here at that time, John came into a situation at the high school that was not pretty. I will just say that. It was not a pretty situation, and within a year or so, he had that place running like a fine watch. And also, I think, did David also bring in, brought in Patrick, right? Because he started, actually, yeah, right before David left. That was, I think, the last admin hire that he made. But of course, as Mr. Venezia always...
John Fauché hired Patrick as assistant.
Oh, that's right.
For the middle school.
That's right.
David had already left. It was Kathy.
Kathy who made him Director of Academic Services.
When she
Right.
withdrew from being the
Correct.
finalist as superintendent.
Right.
And went to Manchester, Essex.
That's right.
And
But
then opened up that, but Patrick was here.
But as Mr. Venezia says, everything that happens good in this district is because of the school committee.
Yes. We're not supposed to have that kind of opinion.
President Cass?
My goodness. Do you mind if I go to Steve next and then to you? Okay. Steve?
I said the other day, I start with the idea that first you love the child, then you teach him. And when John was talking, and obviously neither one of them spoke about loving children, but John talked about trust, about opening up classes and letting kids try whatever and giving them the support. It was a much more mature love for the students than I was hearing. I had to go back and give Patrick a chance to talk about children because I hadn't been hearing it. And I wanted to give him a chance to round that out, but it's not as mature. I agree with Mel absolutely that we have done a wonderful job recruiting wonderful people. It's partly David Troughton who actually made a point of trying to groom internal candidates for administrative work. Right? And it's been part of Kathy Willis. And I have been close enough to appreciate fully how much she has done. I've been watching that at a distance because my kids are all out of the system now. But I've had some wonderful chats with her at school committee and town meetings.
Yeah. And that's been a priority of hers, and I think that's why, going this way was the best way to go, because Kathy's, the 4 years she spent here, has been really treating her admin team like a management team as opposed to let's groom this farm team so then they're all ready to leave and go to other districts. And she's taken a different approach to it, and I think it pays off in terms of loyalty and then having candidates like this.
I think Karen gave us some excellent guidelines and some information on how to assess candidates, and I think coming from the middle school experience, my experience would be different from elementary, from high school, and some of us, the community members may not have the same understanding of what each candidate has brought to the table and what they offer, and they both offer a great amount of wealth of talent and experience. And I think I found myself thinking about, it's such a difficult decision that we're charged with to make this important decision on who's going to lead North Reading, possibly for the next 10, 15, 20 years, pardon me. So I find myself thinking with those guidelines, who weighing against who has the most knowledge, the most education, the most experience, the best application, who has the pulse of the community. And I try to look at how they're saying it, what they're saying, the meaning behind it. And so it's difficult, but I found that the guidelines were helpful in trying to keep me objective and trying to, I know in both of them, it was in different ways in the community. I think it helped me to really look at the core essential ingredients of what we want in a superintendent. So it helped me make that choice, and I see a lot of good and a lot of value with both candidates. I absolutely do. And one of the factors that's weighing on with me more is that I think that they both have a lot of contributions, and I think John has a little more of the pulse on the community. That's kind of how I see it. And as a superintendent, you have to be a figurehead. You have to be in that public eye. You have to be able to advocate for your community, and you have to know and apply. And there's so many things that go with that. So that's kind of what I came away with. I kind of saw that as a slight advantage toward John. Of course, I think Claudia has the best idea. Was it you or Claudia that said, find a way to keep them both? Because
We
they're
joined together to make
Yes.
that idea.
And I think that Patrick would be an invaluable asset, maybe for John. If you look, I think that would be the best case scenario if we were able to find a way to do that. And I think down the line, like you say, I see Patrick being a fabulous superintendent down the line. And you'd almost want to wish that we had superintendent and assistant superintendents. That would be the perfect blending for their two talents. But I know that the system we have works so great that I wouldn't think of changing it. We have so many benefits to the way it's done right now. Just my thought.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody over here?
One of the qualities that I kept hearing all of us say in a pre-meeting and then with the interviews tonight was loyalty came up a couple different times. And loyalty to our system, loyalty to the staff, loyalty to the students. And I just want to say I was very touched by the fact that one of John's references came.
Yeah.
A former person who hired him
interesting.
years ago just to be a teacher. That he was here, came up, I'm assuming he's somewhere around Saugus area because he was taught at Saugus, and just sat here quietly throughout the whole meeting and just to show support so that John earns that kind of loyalty from people. To me, that was very impressive that he wanted to come and sit in Aramark, and I imagine he probably had many other things he wanted to do, but John's just the kind of person you go out of your way for. And that's the kind of person I want to be my leader, is that someone that people are willing to take the extra step for.
Good point.
Matt?
Like you just mentioned, when we all talk about the student and the impact on the student, as a former student at the high school, I could say Mr. Bernard has an impact on every student in that building. You walk through the halls, you say, Mr. Bernard did this, Mr. Bernard did that. He just has that characteristic that I don't think many candidates have of connecting with students, not only at the high school, but the middle school. My sister who just left the middle school. He's a presence there from older brothers and sisters who go to the high school. He has a presence all the way down the line to the elementary schools. And I think as a superintendent candidate, you need to have that impact on that student through all the schools, like we mentioned. And students coming back from college, I know former students, and they just say, Mr. Bernard has had an impact on me that I couldn't get anywhere else. So I just think that's one strong characteristic that the superintendent should have.
If I could add to that, John did have a reference from a former student who wrote that, when he describes Mr. Bernard, to paraphrase what he said, a lot of people think he's talking about a coach, but he's really talking about his building principal. And so, I think, that's been put in writing in his references as well, that quality that he has.
I'd like to just piggyback a quick story on that as far as elementary school. John does do that secret reader or mystery reader to the elementary schools. And I had 3 older boys, and then we have a son, Andrew, there's a big gap. Oops. We love him. I love you. So John specifically asked to read in Andrew's class at the Hood School. He's about in the 3rd grade. He came in and he told the class, and, they were excited to see the principal of the high school. They knew who he was, or he was introduced. And John said, I'm here because of Andrew Genetasio. He was a rock star for that day. Because the principal of the high school came. That's cool. So he's a tremendous guy. Nothing against Patrick.
No. And I can piggyback. They're both great guys. But Steve Jervy and myself and Trish, we were on the original search committee after the principal before. And we were a fractured faculty, and he hailed us. He had open door policy. He was there, initiatives, classes. You came, you presented something to him. He listened to you, took notes like you wouldn't believe, said, I'd get back to you. And he did get back to you. And 9 times out of 10, the initiative went through. I'm the business department, and our business department is growing. We have internships. This year I have like 50 students applying for internships, which he meets with them every summer. They have to go through a process, a resume, find their internship, get a letter, and he meets with every one of these kids. And if it fits in their schedule, they are granted the internship. So Patrick technology-based, great initiatives with that. John is polished, mature, experienced, and I like that he has gone through the teaching, the assistant principal, the principal. And when I came here, I was the young one when I came here in 1986, and I was promised a new school in 1988.
Here you go.
We didn't get one.
What are you complaining about? 28 years and you're complaining? Unbelievable. I'm grateful.
Good things come to those who wait.
Yes.
And I waited.
That old school was a new school.
Thanks, Jerry. I had all your kids too.
I was pretty old by then.
Yeah.
It was a good school when I was there.
Renovated it.
But anyway, go ahead, Eric. Are you up?
Well, I was around when the fractured faculty, and John did do a lot of healing. I'm going to talk on the hat of the former president of the NREA and a former building rep at the high school. Before that, I was building rep for 5 years, 4 years as VP, and then 4 years as president. And we do have on occasion where we have disagreements between the Teacher Association and administration. I will say that every time I've had to go in, either as a building rep or as a VP or as a president, and work with John on an issue, he'd be on one side, I'd be on the other side. We'd always be able to talk, discuss, he would listen, he would consider everything that we had to say, and we'd come up with some kind of a compromise. That's why we don't have, in my reign as president, we didn't have that many grievances that went to the school committee level, because we were always able to work, at least at the high school, we worked very closely with John when an issue came up, and sometimes it got proactive, where there might be an initiative, and John would seek me out and say, this is what we have going on. What is your perspective? Are we going to have a problem with this? And there have been some where we were going to have a problem, and we went through with them. It was the AP issue, the grants with AP, which the MTA disagreed with as not being merit pay, where some teachers got it, others did not. So we said we were going to have a problem with this if we got selected. We didn't have to negotiate anything because it didn't get selected, but it was proactive. Things came up, there might be an issue, let's work it out before it becomes an issue. And it has to happen also at the superintendent level, before it even gets to the superintendent. But if it does get to the superintendent level, we need to have somebody there who can listen, see both sides, and work out those differences before there is a bigger difference. So we can keep it away from you guys on the school committee. I figured you'd appreciate it.
We do. We
know?
Yes.
But I mean, I can see that in my workings there, it was very positive.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we can bring that forward. And then to piggyback on what Matt said, one of the things about John, he knows every kid's name in that high school. From the minute they walk in, he knows them before they come into freshman orientation, because he knows them from the middle school. He hears about them, he's down there, he sees them, he meets them, he gets to know the kids before. My question to him is, how he's going to do that for all 5 schools? But he'll find a way. He will find a way to know every kid's name and to be able to, or know, hey, aren't you so-and-so's younger brother or sister? Right. And that's how he gets to know who they are. And that's important, because if the kids see that the superintendent cares enough to know their name, that's good. That's positive.
Just to jump on that, because it's about a name story. I have a son who just graduated, and I have juniors. They twins met Mr. Bernard in a hockey rink, a classic hockey game, the winter before they went into high school. And he met them, and I don't think they look so much alike anymore, but to outside observers, they're still pretty identical.
They are.
Except to you.
Yeah. John met them both. So they were in 8th grade. He remembered their name in 8th grade. And then he saw him a couple months later, and he knew, like, who's Michael and who's, I don't know how I asked him how he does it. My kid said to me, I can't wait to go to high school. The principal of high school knows my name, and I've just left the middle school for 3 years, and principal didn't know who I was.
Karen, can I tell a name story?
You can tell whatever story you want.
My daughter was a freshman, first week of school, it's a true story. Same type of thing. She's walking down the hallway, and John says, "Hi, Brittany, how are you? How's your first week of school?" And she said, "Good." And she turned to the girl beside her and said, "Who's that?" Doesn't speak well for my daughter. That's a true story.
I believe it.
Can I just make one other comment?
True Vanessa.
Sure, and then Amy. Yep.
Name story, and I related this story earlier this evening about knowing their names. My principal at North Reading High School was Arthur Kenny. And I graduated from North Reading High School in 1970. He knew everyone's name to the point where I think my daughter was a senior, 2006, and Arthur Kenny was sitting on the bench at a North Reading High School baseball game, which I have frequented all my life, and my daughter was on the track. And as I walked down, he looked up and he said, "Tricia Curtin." And I said, "Mr. Kenny, how are you?" And he went, "Arthur." I said, "Whoa, not going there, not going there." I said, I'm well, how are you doing?" And he said, "Don't you have a daughter now that's here?" And I said, "Yeah, I do, Mr. Kenny." He said, "Well, she's got to be an athlete," and I was. He said, "Where is she?" And I said, "She's over in the track." And he said, "Go get her." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I want to meet your daughter." And I went over to the track and I got Stephanie and I said, "You have to come with me for a minute." And she was like, she said, "Why?" And he said, "You need to meet Mr. Kenny." And she went, "Oh, Ma." You know, and I dragged her out of the track and I brought her over and he just said to her, "Okay, now sit down, let's talk." And he looked at me and he said, "And you can go away now." John Bernard is so much Arthur Kenny when I was in high school at North Reading High School that sometimes I went going like, you know, are you related? Or he knows everybody and he will continue to know them after they're long graduated from North Reading High School. And he will make those same kind of relationships with the kids in the community that Arthur Kenny made with me.
You will. Amy, and then anyone else?
So both candidates prepared fantastic packets for us to read, and one thing that really jumped out to me before tonight when we were going through the questions is that most of the questions we chose, John Bernard answered in his cover letter. But we had to still pick them because we were asking the same questions to each candidate. And that really struck me that, and I think it really sums up both candidates so well, is that John Bernard knows exactly what we're looking for, and he knew exactly what to write, and he has his pulse on the community. And again, I called him a rock before, and I'll bring that back. Whereas Patrick, his cover letter was more vague, and he wanted our output and our input, and Patrick is so wonderful like that he. Every new initiative and every publication and every journal's out there, he's read. Like he's everywhere. He absolutely is, and he's so well versed in the things he talked about. Absolutely. But John just had that little edge where he could anticipate what we were going to say and what we were going to ask, and he answered the questions before we even asked them, most of them. And that really struck me before we even started the interview process today.
It's really interesting because Patrick, when he mentioned his late night email exchanges with me, they're pretty common because I read everything and I find all these articles, and I find Patrick and I having discussions on email at 11:30, midnight, 12:30, and then I wonder how does he get up and go to work the next day? But he has a thirst for knowledge and getting better in his job, which is what I really admire about Patrick. So, but again, it's interesting.
Sure, both of these men will lead districts. Both of these men will definitely lead districts. I think John is more ready to lead ours right now. And if Patrick could stay and be, the role that he's in, or like you said, to enhance that role for him, I think that would be a dream come true for North Reading.
Gina.
I know it's late. I think working in a department, in the special education department, we have had so much change administratively. I've been here for 7 years. I've had 2 different directors, 2 different assistant directors, an interim for 2 years. We've changed the model of the department during an interim year. Faculty is being asked to take a leap of faith on people in a time where I feel like you need someone that people can get behind, that they can trust, that know what we need. Both of them being here, I think they know that, but you also want someone that's going to want to stay. And that's what we talked about when we had the PBS director committee, is you're looking for someone that is going to put roots down and is invested. And it isn't to say that Patrick isn't as invested, but I think John demonstrates that he is. He's shown that, and I think if you want people to trust you and you want people to take a leap of faith, you need to be that leader that people can get behind. And just knowing what that's done to our department, which is just a smaller piece to this district, it's damaged us. And we're all working and we're trying to keep it together, but you don't want that for your whole district. You need someone that people can feel confident that they can help.
Any other thoughts?
I think the big question is, I think going back to where you started initially, is that I think all of us probably feel the same way. Does the superintendent want to say yes, but I think we all agree they're both qualified, so everyone in this room is going to say yes, interview them both, or does the school committee want us to say which one we favor? Because
I personally, this group did a tremendous job. I'm really, really impressed with the process and the way that it was put together, the participation. It was fantastic. I'm very proud of it. I was personally looking for the committee to recommend whether or not the candidates were qualified, and to move forward if they're qualified. And this is just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the school committee as a whole. So, in my opinion, watching them, I think I agree with most of you that they're both qualified. I know Mr. Genatasio had suggested that you vote for one over the other, but essentially that may be actually selecting the superintendent, whereas we're looking for candidates forward that are qualified so that we can make a decision. So that's just my opinion, if you're asking.
But I think, as the committee, that you should know who we think.
Yes. I agree with that. That would be helpful.
100%.
Yeah.
But if they're both qualified too, I think that was kind of the purpose of the process, was to identify candidates that were qualified moving forward. But I have no problem with the recommendation.
And that does not have to be part of your official vote. The official vote is just
A, B, or C.
Move 1 forward, move 2 forward, move none forward.
We'll know. So in option B, you can say which candidate you feel should move forward. And we may say to the school committee, we hear you, but we want to make a strong recommendation. And again, the result of the vote is non-binding to the school committee. So, not that we would go against, I don't think we would.
But
God, that would be awful.
I would say right now, to Rich's point though, where you said if you don't give us an opinion of one over the other, it would turn out that this was a waste of time. I will have to tell you that sitting here for the last hour and a half, I've gotten a pretty good feel for what the committee feels, even if both candidates are moved forward. It hasn't been a waste of time.
And
it's been
4 of the 5 members
it's been
are here.
extremely educational and extremely.
But I would like to record that as well.
It will be recorded by if you pick B and put the candidate's name down.
No, but he's saying
Not necessarily.
even if you pick both, he would still want people to say if they favored one over the other.
Okay.
Which I think is fine. If people want to do that.
I'm not doing that.
I haven't been bashful.
I just want to get Michelle's comment.
I circled the A and wrote both candidates worthy of consideration, but I have a strong personal preference for John Britner.
And I think that would be fine. If people want to write that, I think that is, or if they want to favor the other.
I just want to get Michelle's and then Dan.
I guess what I'm asking is, as a teacher in the district, and I'm going to fill out one of these, are you asking me my personal preference, who I want to be my superintendent, or are you asking me, do I think both of these men are qualified for you to decide that?
I don't see those things as sort of one or
They're
the
not
other.
mutually
Yeah,
exclusive. We're asking if you think both are qualified, but then we're saying if you want to indicate who you think is a stronger candidate,
Write
to
it
feel
next to A.
to do that, to add that at the bottom.
The committee will certainly take that into
Exactly, right. Because as a committee, that's why we put this group together. So if we get, 18 St. John and 7 St. Patrick, or 18 St. Patrick and 7 St. John, then that will be something that we will take into consideration. I can tell you, when we hired Kathy Willis, just to go back, and that was a different process because it was outside, the 2 school committee members who sat on the review committee, the search committee, both favored the other candidate. And they were very, very vocal about telling the other 3 committee, and that was a 3-2 vote.
People on the committee voting for the other candidate.
So we, you know,
I was this way.
so, but that was different than tonight, where I've heard a pretty good widespread discussion that favors one candidate over the other.
I have to say, I did exactly the same thing that Steve Jervy did,
Yeah.
and said A and B. They're both qualified, and wrote John Bernard's name in B.
I used an asterisk.
I circled A and B.
So let's just to be clear, I would like us to follow this process. This is the transparent process that we've said in public we would do. I will say for A, if you feel strongly that there's one you recommend, write it next to A. But if they're both qualified, please send them to the school committee. Because we also want, I mean, we're one member who isn't here. But I do think that it's important for us to share the preference, because we do have a preference that's been communicated, and if you want to have that on the record, let that be. If you feel that you know, even though they are both qualified, but you want to put one forward, you can pick B. C, I don't think anyone's picking, but you can pick that too. You know, one of our school committee members actually had said in open session.
Karen, I disagree a little bit, because it doesn't say are they both qualified. It says I recommend both candidates to be interviewed by the school committee.
Yeah.
It doesn't say they're both qualified.
Right, that is
I
different.
recommend one or the other.
Right.
To be.
Because we each have a different impression of what qualified means.
Right.
We all come in with our own perspective.
But that's not on here. Qualified's not on here. We all agree they're both qualified. But we're here to recommend one or the other.
I understand
is
what you're
this
saying,
says.
but the spirit of it is what Jerry had talked about,
Depends on what
which
the
is
charge of the committee is too.
That
our
was the
charge is to
charge.
make a recommendation to the school committee whether they should interview
End of story.
Right,
one,
and-
both, or no
and I
candidate.
say that that's
Is that
different
what
than
you
are they
said?
both qualified.
Right, that is different.
Jan, and then we're going to go back.
I'll be the lone dissenter here on the qualifications. I'll go back to the document you sent us originally.
Mhm.
To approve,
Yep.
you know, not the knowledge and all that, they all hit the minimum qualifications. If you look at the selection criteria that the school committee put forth in this document for the candidate that the committee wanted to select the superintendent, they're both not qualified. There's one that hits every single one of those criteria, and there's another candidate who only hits some of them. In my opinion, that means one's not qualified and one is qualified based on the criteria that's been set
Or
forth.
one is more qualified.
So an individual, that's an individual evaluation, right?
But that's your
And that's, you can do that, he could do that on his, he
Right.
would vote for B on that, right.
So I just want to go back to what Rich said. So do you feel uncomfortable filling out this ballot without clarifying whether it's qualified or not?
I don't feel uncomfortable filling out mine, as everybody could tell from my comments. But what I'm saying is, it was just added that we're putting forward 2 qualified candidates. That's not what this says. It says, I recommend both candidates to be interviewed by the school committee as A. I recommend one candidate, or I recommend no candidates. Nowhere does it say we're putting qualified candidates ahead to, forward to the school committee. So everyone agrees except Danny, but,
Our assumption is you're not going to recommend a non-qualified.
Right, doesn't it say that in the charge, doesn't it?
Never
Yeah, it's in
assume.
the charge.
The charge was clear, this is new wording that came to us tonight.
Right.
And this came from.
This
Matilda,
came
right?
from our professional organization recommended, I hate to use that word, that this is what we do for the purpose of open meeting law. So I went with that. But I understand the subtlety and it's important. But we do need to make some kind of decision, and it is whether to put both of these candidates forward, one or none. And that's really as simple as it gets. to the clerk, because that's his role.
Oh, great.
Somewhere in all the
There you go, Mark.
documentation.
Thank you.
I didn't know all that good stuff like that.
Yes,
No, I
there
didn't.
is. Yes, it's in the
Yeah, they're gonna
guidelines.
add 'em. They're gonna do it.
Oh, they're gonna do it right now?
I'm not getting up though.
You already got it.
Yeah, you have to come to my position here. Thank you. Come to my office. Yeah.
I
You-
ate
So we need to add these up, right? Before everybody leaves, right?
You have to read each one out
Yes.
loud.
American chop.
Okay.
My husband, I didn't eat it.
Yes, please run to the
my
back.
God.
Okay, we'll have a brief recess if anybody needs to go use the facilities, and then we will read, we'll read each one recommendation, and then we will. Okay. Oh. Wait, I don't know if you have.
Okay, so, do you want to tell the?
Congratulations.
So we have, the clerk has counted the votes, even when I took my shoes off, I didn't have enough digits to use to count them. We had 24 recommendations, either A or B, for John Bernard to move forward. And we had 10 total who voted for A, which means they would move Patrick forward. So everybody either in B, voting specifically for one candidate, or in A, voting for both, means that John received the vote of every person on the subcommittee to move forward. So Karen is going to now explain what the next steps are.
Yeah, so this means that this committee will have recommended that we move John Bernard forward as a candidate to be interviewed by the school committee. What this means is that in a non-binding way, we say to the school committee, we strongly recommend that you interview this candidate, and we would not be moving forward Dr. Daly as a candidate. You know, again, it's interesting with committee processes. The school committee, you know, most of us were here tonight, and we just had a brief discussion in the hall. We were a little surprised, but it's okay. We'll breathe. You know, we will discuss it at our meeting, and we will bring in John with the recommendation. And it's been a very good process for us. So, you know, I think this has been the largest committee I've ever worked with, and we've come to this decision. And I'm really glad we had an open discussion about it as well, because it gives us a sense of, you know, what you feel as a community you want in your superintendent. We still have to interview the superintendent candidate that you put forward, and you know, I have to say that, you know, we said at the beginning, this is an internal process. We could determine that candidate doesn't fit when we go outside or go to an interim step. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that we did not choose the superintendent tonight, but we will choose a superintendent through the next phase. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But we hear you, we hear you.
We hear, yes.
Okay. I got it right. We got all the process steps. So, are there any questions, any thoughts you want to share before we?
When is your next meeting?
So we meet on the 20th.
Monday, the 20th.
We're meeting Monday, and
Yep.
the schedule to interview the candidate is August 5th.
August 5th, and we will have a candidate reception for John Bernard sometime next week. Mike is going to work with me to schedule that, and I will let you all know, and I would love for everyone to attend and talk to him, and, you know, because I think it's important to acknowledge the candidate and to make sure, it's like a quasi-site visit, even though they'll be visiting their own school.
It'll be weird.
Or the batch, actually, no, we're going to go to the batch.
August 5th. Oh, for the interview.
August 5th.
So we didn't recommend.
In terms of your next process, school committee,
Yep.
are you asking the same questions? Are you gonna?
We'll come up with different,
Right,
we'll
you
come up with different
something
questions.
different
But the one thing I do want to say, and as Jerry said, we heard you loud and clear. There's no question in my mind who the favorite candidate is from this subcommittee, and that's critically important. I think it's important that you know that if the school committee, and I'm not saying this will happen, if the school committee decides they still want to bring Patrick in, the school committee can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we've got a strong recommendation here, we know where, I mean, if a guy gets 24 out of 24 votes, we think that's a pretty good indication about what this committee wants.
We've heard you loud and clear.
Yes, but the school committee may still want to bring in both candidates. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I just wanted to make that clear. That said, even if we bring in both, there's no question as to who the favorite candidate is. I've never served on a subcommittee that was reviewing candidates where the person got every vote. So that was pretty impressive.
And again,
Probably never served on one as big either.
No,
Yeah.
no, I haven't. I've never, never.
You know, and it's tough because when I was reading everyone and hearing everyone, I didn't say anything about my thoughts about this process. But, you know, I think it's been a very good process, and adhering to process is so important to me, to make sure everyone is heard. I would like as many people to come to whatever reception we put together to really truly continue the process in the way that we've done. We'll talk as a school committee on the 28th. You're free to attend and listen to that discussion. Again, Cliff Bowers is not here and he hasn't heard any of this, and so, you know, I do want to hear what he says, and, you know, we will do this in the open as well. So the process, the schedule, I will send out the schedule with the times. You've got reminders from me to come. We're also going to share the reference data with the school committee that we've collected, so they have that information too. Did I leave anything out? No. Jerry? Did I leave anything out?
I wasn't very attentive.
I just want to thank you all again.
Just listen to her.
This was not an easy process, and from parent to teacher to administrator to whoever else we have in this room, I think we handled this gracefully and professionally, and we discussed I think Claudia put it best, but two gentlemen who are outstanding in this school district, and we did it in a way that says they're both great guys, but in the eyes of this committee, one is more ready to be a superintendent than the other. And I don't think we can ask for any more from this committee. And you did, you know, when I remember the last meeting, I said, let's not just be a rubber stamp. Let's not put both forward just because we want to put both forward. And I appreciate the honesty and the integrity of this committee in doing what we asked you to do. So I just wanted to thank you.
One comment, I made the comment here to a couple of people. If it goes forward the way it looks like it may go, and John is the superintendent, John would be the absolute ideal mentor for Patrick to help him get to that next level, just to be a professional. You know, and if you wanted to include that in your conversations with Patrick.
And as I said, the school committee has discussed in our public meetings that we want to keep both these candidates in the school district. We think it's critical that we keep both these people in the school district. It's not going to be easy, but you know, we're going to do it. Exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. But we're going to do all that we can. So if there's no questions at this time, I'll entertain. Oh, Claudia.
DVRing probably.
Yeah, he's very DVRing right now. So at this point,
I haven't texted him yet.
Oh, that's, I'm famous for sure.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I said it first.
I got Claudia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.